Chapter 855. Just as Chu Yang was about to walk out of the flat mountain ridge, the originally sunny weather suddenly turned dark and cloudy all of a sudden. Dark clouds gathered from all directions as fast as lightning, gathering above the Chu clan as if they were running for their lives. Laduo, the dark clouds in the sky became denser and denser. They rotated slowly and pressed lower and lower. A whirlpool suddenly appeared in the clouds in the sky. The whirlpool became more and more rapid and gradually formed a huge eye. With the sound of a thunderclap, a thick, curved bolt of lightning suddenly wedged itself into the Chu family. With a boom, the earth shook violently. Then, the lightning in the sky was like a silver snake dancing wildly, crazily striking down without stopping. Chu Yang stood on the horse's back and looked into the distance. He asked in bewilderment, "What happened?" The sword spirit smiled calmly. Chu Xiaoxin has broken through to the supreme martial artist level. In the Chu clan, in that small courtyard full of thatch, in that low thatch house, Chu Xiaoxin stood quietly in front of the portrait with his hands behind his back. His eyes were affectionate and focused. Lightning struck down. Chu Xiaoxin looked at the woman in the portrait who was smiling gently. His face was bitter and painful. He closed his eyes and said softly, "I'm sorry. I can't go and find you at that time." Lightning crashed down, illuminating the entire world that was shrouded in dark clouds with a blazing white light. The roof of the thatched hut suddenly disappeared. That lightning struck right on top of Chu Xiaoxin's head. Chu Xiaoxin stood with his eyes closed. A teardrop flowed out from his eyes. He was safe and sound even though the lightning struck him. But his expression became more and more painful. That was the pain and contradiction in his heart. Lightning struck down crazily on top of his head and then dissipated. He stood still with his hands behind his back. He was enduring the baptism of the power of heaven and earth. He opened his eyes and looked at the portrait in front of him. The lightning bolts danced wildly and the portrait moved slightly. The clothes of the woman in the portrait fluttered in the wind. Her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. Her eyes were affectionate and she seemed to be talking to him. Chu Xiaoxin groaned painfully and said, "Are you okay?" The portrait floated up. Her eyes were gentle. "Aren't you okay?" Chu Xiaoxin asked with heartache. The eyes of the portrait were gentle, and the expression was gentle. It floated up gently as if it was denying it. Lightning, accompanied by the rumbling of thunder, exploded above his head. Suddenly, a strong wind blew and torrential rain poured down. However, not a single drop of rain fell within 3 feet of Chu Xiaoxin and the portrait. "Do you blame me?" Chu Xiaoxin continued to ask. The portrait seemed to be deep in thought. Then a gust of wind blew and the portrait fluttered. The clothes of the person in the portrait fluttered, and the gaze in her eyes seemed to become tender and affectionate. Chu Xiaoxin let out a long sigh. "I've missed you so much all these years." All of a sudden he let out a long howl and raised his head. His long hair stood on end and he opened his arms. Facing the might of the thunder and lightning that filled the sky, he shouted with a heart-wrenching voice, "I miss you so much." His voice was filled with sorrow, helplessness, longing, and despair. It turned into a thunderous roar in the sky. Dozens of lightning bolts rained down on his head like a string of pearls. Smashed down. The entire earth was shaking violently. At the boundary of Flat Mountain Ridge, Chu Yang stood on a high slope and looked into the distance. That heart-wrenching shout came from afar. Chu Yang stood solemnly and said silently in his heart, "Elder Master, it's been hard on you." The sword spirit was also feeling the artistic conception. He said deeply, "Have you heard it?" Chu Yang said, "What?" The sword spirit sighed and said, "Have you heard the pain of the path of emotions?" Chu Yang stared in the direction of the thunder and lightning and said deeply, "The pain is because you've been too happy in the past. As long as you've had such unforgettable happiness in your life, even if you're in pain now, you're still happy." The sword spirit became silent. The thunder and lightning stopped. The dark clouds in the sky dissipated quickly and scattered in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the sun shone again and the mountains and rivers were beautiful. Chu Yang got on the horse and shouted, "Go!" The horse raised its hooves and went away with a long neigh. Inside the carriage, the frail Chu Le was leaning against the soft bedding. Her eyes were red, and her fair hands were gripping the armrest tightly. Her knuckles were turning white from gripping it so tightly that they were turning white. She was going to follow her elder brother into an unknown journey of life. The little girl's heart was full of sorrow, confusion, and excitement. She just didn't know what was waiting for her along the way. In the law enforcement hall of Flat Mountain Ridge, Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan stood on a high point and looked up. Little brother has set off, Sha Xinliang said with a hoarse voice. Little brother shouldn't be restrained in this flat mountain ridge, Qin Baoshan said with his hands behind his back. His world should be the heavens. Sha Xinliang laughed. One day we'll meet little brother again in this martial world. Qin Baoshan said affirmatively, I have this feeling. Sha Xinliang sighed and said, yes, law enforcement master has helped us improve our strength. He won't let us stay here. The two looked at each other and smiled. They were both thinking, what will it be like when we meet the law enforcement master and little brother next time? The carriage sped past, leaving a long trail of smoke on the mountain road. Chu Yang rode on the horse quietly and motionlessly. His back was straight and his whole body was like a sharp sword erected on the horse. He was dressed in black. His eyebrows were sword-like and his black hair floated behind his head. His face was cold and motionless. His eyes were focused and vigilant. The carriage had been moving forward quickly for 6 hours. Chu Yang didn't say anything. It seemed that he could use this posture and this speed to travel for thousands of miles. The sun was already high up in the sky. In front of him there was a patch of black. Chu Yang's eyes were dignified. He used his hand to cover his eyes and looked over. It seemed that the pine trees on that side of the mountain were darker and darker in color. They were also denser than this side of the mountain. This should be the Black Pine Mountain Ridge. We'll reach the Black Pine Forest after we pass this 300 miles mountain range. Chu Yang looked at the mountain in front of him with a heavy expression. The Black Pine Forest is the battlefield between the Shao clan and the Huang clan. Chu Yang frowned. With my current strength, it's no different from a fool's dream to pass through this battlefield with Lu. But I must pass through it. We don't have to take this route. But if we don't, the journey will be 3 days longer. Besides, I also want to see how the battle between the Shao clan, the Huang clan and the Yi clan is like. Chu Yang shook his head and laughed self-mockingly. The carriage moved forward slowly and stopped under the shade of a tree. Chu Yang got down from the horse and carried Chu Lur out. He placed her on the ground and said, be good and wait. I'll start cooking. I'll make sure you eat till your mouth is full of oil. Chu Lur looked a little tired and said, but I'm starving. She patted her belly, blinked and smiled. Big brother, how's your culinary skills? I'm the best chef in the heavens. Chu Yang neatly used a few stones to prop up the pot holder. Then he spread out his hands and the spirit energy of the world gradually converged. It slowly formed into a mist and finally turned into drops of clear water and entered the iron pot. He secretly learned this from Chu Xiaoxin that day when he saw him using this method to make tea. Naturally, his speed was thousands of times slower than Chu Xiaoxin's. However, with Chu Lur's current physical condition, she needed this kind of water to lift her spirits and nourish her body. Only then could she use some vitality spring water. A flame started burning at the bottom of the pot. While the water was boiling, Chu Yang quickly went out. After a while he came back with 2 plump wild rabbits. He cleaned them up quickly, skinned and deboned them. Then he set up a rack at one side, put on the wild rabbits and skillfully smeared various ingredients on them. Then he started to roast them. When the water in the pot boiled, the wild rabbits on the rack were also roasted until they were tender and yellow. An alluring fragrance slowly spread out. The plump wild rabbit sizzled on the rack. Drops of oil from the roasting dripped into the fire, making crackling sounds. However, the fragrance became even more fragrant. Chu Lur couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. She looked at the wild rabbits greedily and stuck out her little tongue to lick her lips. Obviously this girl was craving for it. It smells so good, Chu Lur said. Then he realized that at the same time as he spoke, someone else also said the same thing. Chu Yang was shocked. He looked up and saw a man in black standing quietly in the shadow 100 feet away. He wrinkled his nose and sniffed in the direction of the wild rabbits. This person wasn't far away, but Chu Yang didn't notice him. Although he was busy roasting the meat and was a little distracted, with Chu Yang's spiritual energy, he didn't notice when this person came. This showed how powerful this person was. Chu Yang stood up and smiled warmly. Brother, I think you haven't eaten yet. If I'm lucky, can I treat you to a meal? That person looked at him and laughed with some interest. He said in a clear voice, but I wonder how much this meal costs. Chu Yang smiled gently. I think you can tell that although I'm not very rich, I'm not very short of money either. Little brother, you're very straightforward. The man in black laughed and walked over. This person looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He was tall and a little thin. His face was a little pale as if he hadn't seen the sun for a long time. His eyes were gentle, and one couldn't tell that he had any cultivation at all. He was casually holding a tattered scabbard in his hand. There were already frayed edges on the edges of his black clothes. It was obvious that he had been wearing them for a long time, but they were very clean. This person's face was very ordinary, so ordinary that one wouldn't be able to recognize him if he was thrown into a crowd. But Chu Yang asked the sword spirit to observe carefully and confirmed that this person didn't disguise himself. This was his original appearance. "Little brother, what's your name?" This person greeted Chu Yang as if they were close friends. He casually stuffed a piece of firewood into the fire and smiled at Chu Lu. "Little girl, you're really pretty." Chu Lu blushed and hid beside Chu Yang. "My surname is Chu." Chu Yang said, "May I know your surname?" That person laughed. "My surname is Wei. You can call me Big Brother Wei." His brows relaxed as he looked at the wild rabbit on the fire. He seemed to be drooling. "Smells really good." Chu Yang's heart flashed. "Surname Wei? Expert. Who is he?" The 4th chapter was finally completed. I really didn't expect it to be an all-nighter. I really can't afford to slow down my writing speed. Chapter 856. Finally, one of the roasted rabbits was removed from the fire rack. That person's and Chu Lu's gazes turned greedy. The two of them started rubbing their hands at the same time, their 4 eyes staring straight at the roasted rabbit that was sizzling. This was the most delicious piece. And from the looks of it, this was also the place where Chu Yang had put the most effort into roasting it. Without waiting for Chu Yang's instructions, that person had already taken the initiative to clean up a stone to make a dining table. Using his hand, the upper half of the stone disappeared and became as smooth as a mirror. Then he wiped it with his sleeve. Good Lord, it could be used as a mirror. It was so clean that even a fly would split its legs when standing on it. It was too smooth. Chu Yang placed the roasted rabbit on the stone table and said, "Don't move." Then he slowly stood up, walked into the carriage and slowly took out a jar of wine. Just as he was about to turn around, he suddenly heard a quarrel behind him. "Don't move!" Chu Lu screamed. "It's mine." Chu Yang turned around and saw Chu Lu with her arms spread out in front of the roasted rabbit. Her big eyes were round and round as she looked at the man in black opposite her angrily. Her gaze was actually a little fierce. One could see that the man in black was retracting his right hand somewhat awkwardly. It was obvious that he was hesitant. He swallowed twice and said, "Where are the 2 buttocks?" What he meant was, "One for each of us." "Oh." Chu Lu said loudly, "The other one is my elder brother's." The man in black's face immediately fell. He looked at Chu Lu with a pleading gaze. Chu Lu said righteously, "It's no use pretending to be so pitiful. It's no use looking at me pitifully. Rabbits only have 2 buttocks and there are 3 of us." Chu Yang laughed and turned around to walk back. The man in black retracted his hand resentfully and said, "This younger sister of yours is really fierce." Chu Lu snorted and turned her face away. "This younger sister of mine. As long as you don't snatch food from her, she has a better temper than anyone else," Chu Yang said with a smile. This sentence was obviously biased. The man in black was very dissatisfied. He thought to himself, "If I don't snatch food to eat, what should I snatch?" But in the blink of an eye, his dissatisfaction disappeared, and his eyes lit up. "There's wine? Good wine." Chu Yang smiled in a self-satisfied manner. He then opened the mud seal with his palm, and a rich wine aroma immediately spread out. The black-clothed man narrowed his eyes and took a deep breath. He opened his mouth and exhaled, "Good wine?" It was as if he had already taken a sip. Chu Yang smiled in his heart. This wine is made by the sword spirit. Moreover, a small amount of vitality spring water has been added to it. How can it not be good? He put down the jar, took out 3 cups and poured 3 cups. The man in black stopped him. "Your sister is clearly sick, yet you still let her drink?" Chu Yang was a little surprised. This guy has good eyesight. He can actually tell that Lure is sick? However, it was still a little lacking. He could not tell how much the wine nourished Lure's body. He said indifferently, "Other wines may not work, but this wine, drinking just 1 cup is not a problem. Moreover, it is beneficial." He thought that this man's heart was not bad. He washed his hands with wine and the wine flowed down. The aroma was so strong that it almost condensed. The black-clothed man's heart ached so much that he bared his teeth. His face was almost a little ferocious as he said, "Such good wine. You're using it to wash your hands?" Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, "If I don't wash my hands, I'll tear the rabbit for you. Do you dare to eat it?" The black-clothed man said, "But you can't use such good wine." Chu Yang ignored him. He took the roasted rabbit and directly tore off one of its legs. Under the black-clothed man's greedy gaze, he passed it to Chu Lu. The black-clothed man made a gulping sound in his throat. He looked at it reluctantly and then at the other leg. With a tearing sound, Chu Yang tore off another piece and placed it in front of Chu Lu. Eat slowly, don't choke. Chu Lu nodded happily and contentedly, chewing until her mouth was full of oil. The black-clothed man's eyes widened. He said angrily, "You treated me to a meal but you gave both legs to your sister." As he said that, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Chu Yang said, "Isn't there still a wild rabbit on the fire? Besides, a rabbit isn't small. After removing its internal organs, it's still 3 to 4 kilograms. So, without both legs it's still delicious everywhere else." The black-clothed man rolled his eyes and took a sip of wine. Immediately, the dissatisfaction on his face disappeared. He was about to reach out to take the rabbit. However, he saw that Chu Yang had already handed over the hare to him. Looking at the rabbit that was missing 2 legs, the black-clothed man hesitated for a moment and took it, full of indignation. As if he wanted to vent, he took a big bite. In just a moment, half of the wine was gone and the wild rabbit was also in the black-clothed man's stomach. Chu Yang still didn't move. "Why aren't you eating?" The black-clothed man burped and asked. "I'm waiting for the next one." Chu Yang pointed and smiled. "That's the back of the rabbit." The black-clothed man choked. He put down the rabbit that was only left with a skeleton and lowered his head to look at his stomach. Looking at the wine that was only half a jar left, he looked depressed. He was only focused on eating. At first, he was still thinking about the next one. Later, the more he ate, the more fragrant it became. He was actually full. "You're ruthless." The black-clothed man stuck out a greasy thumb in front of Chu Yang. There was an indescribable depression in his heart. Chu Lu had a small appetite. After drinking a cup of wine, she couldn't even finish the 2 rabbits and was already full. The second wild rabbit was finally roasted. Chu Yang eagerly tore off a rabbit leg and handed it over. "Brother Wei, do you want to eat the rabbit leg?" The black-clothed man looked at it hatefully and snorted. He picked up the wine cup and drank helplessly. The more he drank, the more sullen he felt. Chu Yang drank one mouthful after another. He ate very slowly. The black-clothed man drank and accompanied them. He sighed again and again. Then, he suddenly burst into laughter and said, "I didn't expect that I would be so depressed after being treated to a meal. I haven't felt this way for many years. You 2 kids are really daring. I also didn't expect that someone would eat my food and drink my wine and still be dissatisfied." Chu Yang was finally full. The 2 of them looked at each other and laughed. At this moment, they both felt that the other party was somewhat pleasing to the eye. Wherever the black-clothed man went in his life, everyone was respectful to him. When had he ever been humiliated? Today the other party used the simplest method to make him feel helpless. Instead he felt that it was novel. "Where are you 2 going?" the black-clothed man asked. "We're going to the capital." Chu Yang smiled. "Capital?" The black-clothed man frowned. "Just the 2 of you?" Chu Yang said, "What's wrong?" The black-clothed man shook his head. "The 2 of you are purely delivering yourself to others. I don't know who will eat you on the way. I advise you to go back to where you came from." Chu Lu said indignantly, "My big brother is an expert." The black-clothed man was amused by her words. He looked at Chu Yang and said, "Although your cultivation isn't weak, with your cultivation of a 4th or 5th stage martial emperor, it's far from enough to bring your sister all the way from here to thousands of miles away." Chu Yang said lightly, "Whether it's enough or not, we can only take one step at a time." The black-clothed man pondered for a moment and said, "Forget it. I'm going to pass through the black pine forest anyway. Since I've eaten your meal, then follow me through the black pine forest. However, you'll have to walk the road after the black pine forest on your own." Chu Yang laughed. "No need. We can walk on our own. Since Brother Wei has something to do, it'll be delayed if you follow us." Although he had already vaguely guessed who this person was, he wouldn't curry favor with him because of his identity. Chu Yang was proud and arrogant. He had his own perseverance. And his perseverance wouldn't waver for anyone. The black-clothed man looked at him deeply and said, "If we walk together, I'll eat your meal along the way." He also saw Chu Yang's bad performance. However, he felt that this young man was very congenial and wanted to help him. "I'll eat your meal as a reward and escort you to the black pine forest." Although this sentence wasn't explicitly said, the meaning was already very obvious. He smiled bitterly in his heart. If someone knew that I've actually done such a task, they would be so shocked that their teeth would fall out. "No need." Chu Yang rejected. "We didn't bring much food. Moreover, a lot of it is for my younger sister's treatment. If there's one more person, I'm afraid it won't be enough." The black-clothed man frowned and felt a little helpless. He had been a loner all his life and had never owed anyone anything. Now that he had eaten a meal from someone else, he wanted to help out and let it go. After all, it was worth more than a meal. If it were anyone else, they would feel that treating him to a meal was worth it. However, he didn't expect the other party to reject him so straightforwardly. This made him feel a little uncomfortable. He laughed and said, "Since little brother is so insistent, I'll take my leave. After eating your meal today, I'll definitely repay you in the future." He stood up lazily and in a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Chulur watched the black-clothed man leave and asked curiously, "Big brother, why?" Chuyang said, "Why what?" Chulur said puzzledly, "This black-clothed man is an expert. Moreover, Big Brother's initial intention was to form a partnership with him. But in the end, when he offered to help, Big Brother deliberately messed up this matter again." Chuyang. He touched Chulur's hair and said, "Little girl, you're really observant." He pondered for a while and said, "This person is indeed an expert. But I don't want to owe others. We have to rely on ourselves for everything. We can't rely on others to protect us for our entire lives." Chulur nodded and rolled her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. Although Chuyang said this, he knew that with Chulur's intelligence she would definitely understand what he meant. He didn't say it because the black-clothed man didn't go far. "I don't want to owe others, but I'm willing to let others owe me." He guessed who this black-clothed man was and naturally knew the legendary bad character of this black-clothed man. "Don't ask for help for anything. Don't owe anyone for anything. You ate my meal and you want to repay me with something as simple as escorting me through the black pine forest. No one owes anyone anything from now on? How can there be such a cheap thing? You don't want to owe me, but I'll make you owe me. Even if it's just a meal. A favor from the world's #1 blood payer expert is not easy to get." Chuyang's eyes flickered. Yesterday he was so tired that he slept until noon. After sending his comrades off, he came back and slept until 7 o'clock at night. Today's update will be late, but he still asked for monthly votes. Chapter 857. Chuyang's guess was right. This man in black was the legendary #1 blood payer expert in the world, Wei Wuyan. Wei Wuyan. It was said that there was no blood payer mission that couldn't be completed by this person. As long as Wei Wuyan accepted the bounty of a blood payer, then the person on the bounty would definitely die. Wei Wuyan was famous for being mysterious. It was said that no one knew what Wei Wuyan looked like, and no one knew what level of cultivation Wei Wuyan had. The world's #1 painter, Su Danqing, had seen Wei Wuyan before. But when he wanted to draw a portrait of Wei Wuyan, he found that he couldn't draw at all. Every expert had their own charm and unique temperament. But Wei Wuyan didn't. Facing Wei Wuyan, Su Danqing actually fell into a daze. Because no matter what, he couldn't see anything special about Wei Wuyan. After Wei Wuyan left, Su Danqing locked himself in the studio for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, he vomited blood and fainted. Because not only could he not draw, but he also forgot what Wei Wuyan looked like the moment Wei Wuyan left. And he completely forgot. He had no impression at all. What was the most important thing for a painter? Wasn't it eyesight, memory, insight, and brushwork? These were the most basic things. Now that such a thing had happened, how could Su Danqing, the painter of his generation, not break down? The only time the Blood Payers Hall had offered a bounty for a supreme martial artist was completed by Wei Wuyan. Although he was only a first-grade supreme martial artist, Wei Wuyan's strength was daunting. Wei Wuyan was always alone. He had never fallen in love with anyone and never needed anyone's help. No matter how difficult the task was, he wouldn't ask for help. There was once a blood payer expert who was ranked #2 who contacted Wei Wuyan and wanted to cooperate with him, but was rejected by him. What everyone didn't expect was that although Wei Wuyan didn't ask for help in everything, he had a weakness. He was a foodie. However, although this food was delicious, he also had his principles. Firstly, no one knew his true identity. Secondly, as long as he ate a meal, he would repay them adequately. Therefore, although Wei Wuyan was delicious, he ate with a clear conscience. No one could refuse Wei Wuyan's repayment. Moreover, after being eaten by him, they would still have to thank him profusely. Wei Wuyan liked this feeling. But this time he had miscalculated. He had never thought that Chuyang would refuse. From his point of view, one of the siblings was sick, while the other's cultivation level was low. To pass through the Black Pine Forest and walk out of the southeast region. Especially in this troubled period, this was simply an impossible task. Escorting them there was a good opportunity that ordinary people could not even dream of. Therefore Wei Wuyan was invited to sit down without hesitation. Who would have thought that after eating, Wei Wuyan, who had never owed anyone anything, actually owed someone a love? Under such circumstances, how could he really go far? Of course he had to hide on one side. He thought to himself, even if you don't want me to escort you, I will quietly solve the problem for you. So, I don't owe you anything. Then he heard Chu Yang's words and immediately regretted it. Rely on yourself for everything and never owe anyone anything. This is the creed of me, Wei Wuyan. Why did this little mouth say it? In an instant, Wei Wuyan only felt a little disappointed, but also a little sympathetic. After the meal, the two of them set off again. The cold autumn wind blew all the way. Chu Yang pretended not to know that Wei Wuyan was secretly following them. Of course he was pretending to be confused. But Wei Wuyan had absolute confidence. With my cultivation level and stealth skills, even a high-level supreme martial artist might not be able to detect me if I follow them secretly. Otherwise, how could I complete so many blood payers' missions? But he would never have thought that this person, who was only a 4th or 5th stage martial emperor in his eyes, actually possessed a divine soul power that was unparalleled in the entire heavenly realm. In Chu Yang's visualization, Wei Wuyan, who thought that he was stealthily moving in the dark, was simply as dazzling as walking in front of the carriage openly. After walking for more than 20 miles, they finally met with trouble. Two black-clothed men caught up from behind like a gust of wind. They overtook the carriage like lightning. Then one of them seemed to have thought of something and stopped, blocking the road. The other one stopped as well. Just as he was wondering, the one who stopped first laughed strangely and said, "Little kid, what a handsome horse. Isn't it a pity to use it to pull the carriage? Come, come, come. Let me ride it on the road. It'll save some energy." These two men galloped all the way at an extremely fast speed. Originally, they didn't ride horses because they were confident that their speed was faster than fast horses. But now, seeing that they were only a few hundred miles away from their destination, they felt tired. Besides, they were going to risk their lives. How could they not conserve their energy? Since there was only such a short distance left and they met such a carriage here, wouldn't it be a gift from the heavens to them? But these two men were really unlucky. They had persevered for thousands of miles. Why did they have to cause trouble in the last bit of the journey? It would have been fine if he had stopped, but he had sent both his legs into the depths of hell. Because they would never have thought that the people they had provoked were actually the king of hell of the present age. And they had provoked two of them at the same time. One in the open and one in the dark. Wei Wuyan immediately became spirited. Looking at these two men, they should also be blood payers experts who responded to the bounty offered by the blood payers and went to help the Huang clan earn purple crystals. Such a cultivation level wasn't something that this little kid could deal with. As long as the situation is critical, I'll take action at any time to repay the kindness of this meal. From now on, I don't owe anyone anything. Wei Wuyan was actually a little excited in his heart. Little kid, do you think that everyone can do it without owing anyone anything? You're wrong. Only those with strength can do it without asking for anything. Chu Yang's eyes were cold as he looked at these two men. Yes, their cultivation levels are not bad. They both reached the first stage of monarch level. You want my horse? Chu Yang smiled. He sat on the horse and looked down at the two men. Although he was smiling, his expression was cold. The two men were used to being domineering. When they saw Chu Yang's contemptuous look, they immediately flew into a rage. Get down. Little brat, you're still pretending to be mysterious. It's your honor that I want your horse. Chu Yang smiled and suddenly floated down from the horse. Wei Wuyan, who was in the dark, was startled at the same time. Because as Chu Yang floated down, sword aura suddenly soared to the sky. A sharp sword intent was emitted from Chu Yang's body in a crisscross manner. The long swords at the waists of the two men automatically popped out of their sheaths with a loud sword cry. There was actually a sense of excitement and exhilaration in the sword cry. The two long swords made of ordinary iron seemed to have been stimulated at this moment when they faced the Sword King. A light flashed in midair, and Chu Yang had already turned into a stream of light. What harm is there in slaughtering everyone in the world? If it were other people, it might be possible to reason with them. Even if they were stronger than the other party, they could still patiently tease them before killing them. But in the face of such people, Chu Yang didn't even have the mood to say a word. He could only kill them. He wasn't interested in talking at all. Wei Wuyan, who was in the dark, almost popped his eyes out. Damn, he's actually a sword sovereign. And his level isn't low. This time old Wei has really misjudged. Just now Wei Wuyan was caught off guard. Even his sword almost popped out. Luckily Wei Wuyan was strong and reacted quickly. He suppressed his sword at the first moment and didn't expose himself. The two men were caught off guard. They immediately touched the sword hilt at their waists, but what they touched was the cold sword edge. Only then did they remember that their long swords had popped out automatically. Just with this slight hesitation, Chu Yang's sword light had already shot over like lightning. The two men felt cold when the sword light touched their bodies. Sword Sovereign. The two men exclaimed at the same time. For a moment they were both regretful. Motherfucker, I've been walking for thousands of miles and taking detours whenever I see something. Now that I've finally arrived here, I've actually offended a sword emperor in the last 200 to 300 miles. Why did you want to save your energy? The first man roared. He couldn't care less about the regret on his face. He retreated quickly and pulled out his sword. But just as he unsheathed his sword, the sword light from the other side had already arrived in front of him. Blocked. With a click, the sword that had just been unsheathed was cut into two pieces like a piece of wood. He exclaimed and retreated desperately. He shouted, "Domain!" A vacuum-sealed space appeared in front of him. In the dense forest, Wei Wuyan sighed deeply. He actually wants to use a domain to block a high-level sword sovereign. I don't know how this martial monarch is doing. He should be at least dozens of kilograms if he's not dozens of years old. He's so ignorant. He could have escaped with his life, but once this domain appeared, both of us are finished. Wei Wuyan was a little depressed. Looks like I'm not needed again? Feel. Chu Yang snorted coldly. His long sword continued to move forward. When it touched the sealed space, it burst like a soap bubble. The domain of a martial monarch was actually broken by a sword. That man spat out a mouthful of blood. His divine soul was seriously injured. He desperately dodged to one side. The long sword rushed past him with a sharp whistle. Blood flew like rain. Half of his body was already stained with blood. With just one sword, his left arm had disappeared and turned into minced meat. Even two ribs on his left chest were broken. A large piece of flesh was scraped off from the left side of his face. He staggered back and screamed inaudibly. His face had already turned pale. But Chu Yang's face was cold and hard. He didn't stop at all. The sword light flew up again. It was still the same move as before. What harm is there in slaughtering the whole world? Kill him while he's sick. The sword light was like a meteor. This man screamed. He couldn't care less about his serious injuries. He quickly rolled on the ground and desperately released hidden weapons to block Chu Yang. But he was facing a sword sovereign. Since he had lost the initiative and was seriously injured by his opponent, his ending was basically doomed. The sword light flashed. This man screamed in despair. Blood spurted out from his chest. He staggered and retreated. Chu Yang had already turned around like a whirlwind and rushed towards another person. In the dense forest, Wei Wuyan sighed deeply. His eyes were full of doubts. A fourth-grade sword sovereign who's not even 20 years old. How can there be such a genius in this world? Why haven't I heard of him before? To be continued. Chapter 858. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. First update. Another person came to his aid desperately with his sword. Chu Yang had just turned around when this person had already rushed to him. Just as this absolute defense was about to be launched, two rays of sword light had already met in the air. The thin swords clashed in the air and actually made a deafening sound, as if a big hammer had smashed on metal. Chu Yang's clothes fluttered behind him. He flew straight for more than 100 feet, his chest heaving up and down. This time he had really clashed head-on with a monarch-level expert. Although Chu Yang had used his exquisite sword techniques to offset some of the power, his cultivation was still not as strong as the other parties. Latest chapter of the Holy Hall. That person rushed up with a hideous smile. Little one, is this all you've got? Chu Yang's face changed. His body shook and he launched the fleeting snow cloud movement. Launching the fleeting snow cloud movement with the strength of an emperor-level expert, he was really as agile as a swimming dragon. That person attacked repeatedly but couldn't even touch Chu Yang's shadow. He couldn't help but feel more and more terrified. Chu Yang's sword light was faintly discernible. A feeling of extreme danger suddenly shrouded this person's heart. Sword energy suddenly erupted. Chu Yang defended for dozens of moves and finally found an opportunity to turn from defense to offense. But who knew that just as he was about to launch his sword attack, he saw this guy suddenly fly back and rush in another direction. Chu Yang's pupils shrank. Over there, Chu Lure's head was sticking out of the carriage, and that person was rushing towards her. Wei Wuyan secretly rejoiced. He thought, it's finally my turn to attack. At this moment, Wei Wuyan suddenly felt a chill down his spine. His heart shook and he looked over in horror. He saw that the sword light on Chu Yang's side had already turned into the scorching sun in the sky. Then, it turned into a long rainbow shooting through the sky. In a moment of desperation, Chu Yang directly used all his techniques. In the blink of an eye, the sword went from, a single ray of cold light pierces 10,000 feet, to, you shall be worry-free as long as I'm alive. 10 moves were like a flash flood. Wei Wuyan saw a billowing storm coming towards him. The storm swept over the person who was speeding away. That person was still 70 to 80 feet away from Chu Lu. He did not even have the chance to scream before he turned into fragments that filled the sky. Net. The torrent surged and rushed toward the forest where Wei Wuyan was hiding. Wei Wuyan sighed gloomily. He lowered his body and sank 100 feet into the ground. The storm of sword energy swept across the woods with a loud rumble, directly plowing out a 50 feet wide and 400 to 500 feet long road. All the trees, not even a single root was left on the ground. They all turned into powder, filling the entire sky densely. Then they fell from the sky like snow, and it didn't stop for a long time. When Wei Wuyan crawled out from the ground, he found that Chu Yang had already driven the carriage far away. Voices came from afar. Big brother. You're so amazing. The little lowly's voice was filled with admiration. Of course. Hearing these two words, one could imagine a certain someone's arrogant expression. You didn't even ask for their names before killing them. How terrifying. The little lowly said. It's meaningless to ask for a dead person's name. A certain someone was obviously enjoying the adoring gaze of the little lowly. He was a little arrogant. Well, no wonder you didn't let that black-robed man protect us. The little lowly said with a sudden realization. Haha, I still have to protect him when I'm free. A certain someone boasted shamelessly. Wei Wuyan only felt that his stomach was bulging. He shook his body and shook off the dust on his body. There was actually a thick pile of dust at his feet. Wei Wuyan leaped up and was about to chase after Chu Yang. Now he was more and more interested in this Chu Yang. Wei Wuyan had a fortuitous encounter when he was young, and he was also taught by a famous teacher. He was already an emperor-level expert when he was only 20 years old. After that, he fought repeatedly and walked step by step to his current unshakable position in the bloody world. It could be said that his life was smooth sailing, but it could also be said that he had gone through a lot of hardships. But he asked himself honestly. When he was Chu Yang's age, he definitely didn't have Chu Yang's combat power. But at this moment, he frowned as if he had noticed something. A familiar aura appeared not far ahead. Sacred Hall the target this time. Wei Wuyan swept past like a gust of wind. This time, Wei Wuyan came to the Black Pine Forest not for the reward of the battle between the Huang clan and the Shao clan, but because he had received news that his mission, which had been for half a year, had finally appeared in this area. That was why he came. The person that Wei Wuyan wanted to kill this time was Inyang Bridge. Wan Renjia, a martial artist at the peak of the martial saint level and the #1 thief in the southeast region. But he was given a nickname by all the heavenly layer martial artists. Wan Renjia. It was said that Wan Renjia was dissolute and shameless. His cultivation was high and he appeared and disappeared unpredictably. Moreover, he specialized in intercepting the goods of law enforcement officers and big clans. As long as it belonged to law enforcement officers and big clans, even if it was a grain of rice, he would intercept it. But he didn't touch the other forces. He was a strange person. Wei Wuyan originally didn't want to kill Wan Renjia, but he urgently needed purple crystals this time. Wan Renjia's bounty had soared from 8,000 purple crystals all the way to 70,000 purple crystals today. This number made Wei Wuyan's heart palpitate. That was why he accepted it. But after chasing him for half a year and fighting him 3 times, Wan Renjia managed to escape. This time, Wei Wuyan made sufficient preparations. He swore not to let Wan Renjia escape from his hands again. Now Wan Renjia's unique aura finally appeared. Wei Wuyan was overjoyed. Speaking of which, he had to thank Chu Yang for this. If it wasn't for his strong sword aura that had aroused Wan Renjia's curiosity, it was really hard to say when he would be able to stop this guy. Wei Wuyan's body was like a black flowing light, flashing and disappearing. Chu Yang rode on the horse and chatted with Yu Chu and Lur all the way, luring Wei Wuyan to catch up. Suddenly Chu Yang's whole body shook and his face changed. In his spiritual sense there were 3 strong auras in front. Each of these 3 auras was almost not inferior to Han Xiaoran. Chu Yang was shocked. Where did these 3 peerless experts come from in such a barren mountain? Among these three auras, one was very obvious but the other two were very hidden. Just from the distribution of the auras, Chu Yang could analyze that this was a trap. One of them must have appeared as a bait to lure the enemy to attack, while the other two were lying in ambush at the side, ready to ambush. Chu Yang was puzzled. Is this the main battlefield of the Yi clan and the Shao clan? But, even if it's the main battlefield of the two clans, it's impossible to send out these three peerless experts at the same time. The current battle situation obviously hasn't reached the stage of sending out such experts. Sensing with his spiritual sense, Wei Wuyan suddenly accelerated and caught up with him like a flash of lightning. In an instant, he overtook the carriage and entered the dense forest ahead. Chu Yang was shocked. Wei Wuyan? The opponent's target is Wei Wuyan? But who is so resourceful to be able to grasp Wei Wuyan's whereabouts? But no matter what, this is really strange. Chu Yang pulled the reins and the horse stopped. Seeing that it was already afternoon, Chu Yang was silent for a while and finally got down from the horse. He said, "Lure, don't move. I'll go ahead and take a look. Something big must have happened in front." Chu Lu nodded obediently. "Big brother, go ahead. I'm not afraid." Chu Yang chuckled and stopped the carriage. Then he silently made a big hole between two big trees at the side of the carriage and let Chu Lu hide in it. He used the Thousand Phantom technique to massage Chu Lu's blood and let it stay in her body. In this way, as long as Chu Lu didn't crawl out, no one would be able to discover her hiding place. Then he cleverly covered the top and sprinkled a layer of topsoil. This place became a seamless hiding place. Even if someone discovered the carriage, they wouldn't discover Chu Lu. The carriage can be lost but Lure can't be lost. Chu Yang thought. Stay here and don't move. I'll be back soon, Chu Yang exhorted. Chu Lu nodded obediently. There were obviously 4 experts preparing for a decisive battle ahead. If he brought Chu Lu along, Chu Yang wasn't confident that he could protect her. But there was a road ahead that they had to pass through. So Chu Yang could only stop here. With his divine soul, he could feel that this place was outside the attack range. It was absolutely foolproof. Chu Yang rushed out of the dense forest and said in his consciousness space, "Sword Spirit, I'm afraid I've caused you to possess my body this time. With my own strength, I'm afraid I'll be discovered by them before I reach the heart circle." The Sword Spirit chuckled. Then the two of them changed their bodies without anyone noticing. The Sword Spirit controlled the body. The Sword Spirit's spiritual power and Chu Yang's spiritual power fused together, and formed an incomparably powerful spiritual power. The black figure turned into a streamer in an instant. It shot forward. Wei Wuyan walked forward for 7 to 8 miles and suddenly stopped. On the roadside ahead, a man in green was standing with his hands behind his back. He nodded and smiled at Wei Wuyan. He had a graceful bearing. The corners of his face were protruding and his eyes were as sharp as swords. His posture was tall and straight. Just by standing there he was like an unshakable mountain. It was Wan Renjia. Wei Wuyan suddenly stopped from running at a high speed. His movements were as natural as moving clouds and flowing water. There wasn't the slightest bit of effort. His eyes became dangerous and sharp. "Waiting for me?" Wan Renjia turned around slowly. "Wei Wuyan, long time no see." Wei Wuyan smiled faintly. "Wan Renjia, are you here to deliver purple crystals for me?" Wan Renjia said indifferently, "As long as you can take it, it would be my honor to earn a few purple crystals for Brother Wei with my head." He rolled his eyes and said, "I'm afraid that Brother Wei will overreach himself and step onto the Yinyang Bridge in my hands." Wei Wuyan chuckled. "I've already seen the Yinyang Bridge. It's just us." Wan Renjia lowered his hands behind his back. When he raised them up, they were already in front of him. With a soft sound, a strange-shaped weapon appeared in his hands. This was a sword, but it was half as short and twice as wide as an ordinary sword. The sword blade was divided into 2 sides. One side was as white as snow, while the other side was as black as ink. Yinyang Bridge was not only Wan Renjia's nickname, but also the name of this sword. Black and white sword, Yinyang Bridge. Wei Wuyan's pupils contracted. Looking at this strange sword, he said in a low voice, "This must be the famous Yinyang Bridge. I haven't seen it in the previous few battles. Today I finally see it. It's indeed a murderous weapon." Chapter 859. Yes, this is the Yinyang Bridge. Wan Renjia stared at the sword in his hand affectionately and said lightly, "When you see the Yinyang Bridge, you will cross it with your sword. When you see the Yinyang Bridge, you will cross it." Wei Wuyan, you've been through so much wind and snow in your life. You've even been nurtured by your parents. It'll be a pity if you die on my Inyang Bridge. Wei Wuyin, it's not too late for you to give up this mission. Wan Renjie raised his head and looked at Wei Wuyin. He said seriously, I really don't want to kill you. Wei Wuyin smiled. You don't want to kill me? I'd like to hear your reason. Why don't you want to kill me? Wan Renjie smiled heavily. In the whole southeast region, there aren't many people who can catch my eye. But you Wei Wuyin are a real man. I'm an enemy of law enforcement officers and big clans, but I don't want to be an enemy of you. Wei Wuyin was silent for a moment and said, It's a pity that I've already accepted your mission. Before that, I don't want to be an enemy of you. Wan Renjie pondered and frowned. You have difficulties? Wei Wuyin smiled lightly. Who doesn't have difficulties in this world? Wan Renjie said, Good. 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 He said good 3 times in a row. His expression gradually became cold and piercingly cold. The qi in his body was also surging. He said solemnly, It seems that you have to kill me? I don't want to kill you, but if I don't, I won't be able to get those 70,000 purple crystals. Wei Wuyin said. Wan Renjie smiled. It's a pity that you won't be able to get those 70,000 purple crystals, and you'll also lose your life here. He clapped his hands and said, Brothers, come out and meet the #1 blood payer expert in the southeast region. Wei Wuyin smiled lightly. I saw you here alone, so I knew that you must have a helper. I'm curious about who's so daring to help you even though he knows that I'm the one who wants to deal with you. He smiled disdainfully and said, This kind of precedent can't be set. Net. A voice sounded behind him from afar. Can't we set a precedent like this? Wei Wuyin? Wei Wuyin floated up like a willow catkin and moved 30 feet to the right to avoid Wan Renjie's frontal attack. He then turned sideways and looked behind him. A yellow-robed man suddenly appeared 300 feet away, floating over like a gust of wind. His legs did not move, and his whole body was 3 feet above the ground as if he was riding the wind. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, making him look indescribably dashing. This yellow-clothed man had a square face and big ears. His face was square and his skin was fair. 3 strands of long beard floated in front of his chest. His eyebrows were thick like swords, but his eyes seemed to be nested in his eye sockets, slender and sharp. In the blink of an eye he was already 100 feet away. He then stopped and landed on the ground. He smiled faintly. Wei Wuyin, do you recognize me? Wei Wuyin took a breath. Road of life and death, Chengduing? The eyes of the yellow-robed man flashed with lightning, and he said a little desolately, Brother Wei is really knowledgeable. Yes, I'm Chengduing. I didn't expect Brother Wei to know that there's someone like me in the pugilistic world. Wei Wuyin only felt bitterness in his mouth and he said, Experts in the pugilistic world are very famous. How can I not know you? Chengduing said amiably, Brother Wei, you're too arrogant. I'm just trying to make a living. How can I be compared to Brother Wei, who's the #1 blood payer in the world? Wei Wuyin sighed. The road of life and death in the human world is crossed several times by ghosts. Every time they come and go they become doing, sending you back. Brother Cheng, you're known as the ferryman of life and death. Why do you want to get involved in this? Chengduing also sighed. I also don't want to. But it's a pity that you want to kill the Inyang Bridge. If the Inyang Bridge is broken, where's the road of life and death? I have no choice but to do so. I hope Brother Wei can be considerate when you step on the Inyang Bridge and cross the road of life and death. Wei Wuyin's face really changed this time. His voice was heavy and his heart also became heavy. If the Inyang Bridge is broken, where's the road of life and death? So, the 3 of you know each other? And the other one is also here? Why don't you come out and let me see you? Net, a gloomy voice said, You're indeed the #1 blood payer expert in the world. You're so knowledgeable. I'm Bao Buhuan. Greetings, Brother Wei. Wei Wuyin changed his position again. He slowly turned around and looked in the direction where the voice came from. He sighed, I see. Along with the gloomy voice, a figure in black appeared like a ghost. Like a weightless kite, he hung on the treetops 100 feet away and floated. Wei Wuyin, I'm Bao Buhuan from the Netherworld Crossing. Once I enter the Netherworld Crossing, I promise I won't return. Wei Wuyin's face became obscure. He took a deep breath and felt the internal qi in his chest and abdomen surging. He laughed, When you see the Inyang Bridge you'll cross it. Send you back to the road of life and death, and advise you not to return. Once I enter the Netherworld Crossing, I promise I won't return. He laughed deeply and said, I really didn't expect the 3 of you to be one. The one who surprised me the most is you, Chengduing. No wonder Wei Wuyan was surprised. Wan Renjie from the Yinyang Bridge was the #1 thief in the southeast region. Bao Buhuan from the Netherworld Crossing was the #1 killer in the southeast region. Cheng Duing from the Road of Life and Death was the blood payer with the second highest completion rate in the southeast region, just below Wei Wuyan. Who would have thought that the three of them, who never interfered with each other, actually had a connection with each other? And such a close connection. The three of them laughed at the same time. No wonder you're puzzled. Because those who know about this matter are all dead. Wei Wuyan said heavily, it's indeed a secret. May I know the reason? Wan Renjie said lightly, Brother Wei, since you're about to die, I'll tell you. The three of us were taught by three blood brothers. Brother Wei, have you heard of the Kaitian three heroes? Wei Wuyan was suddenly enlightened. He sighed, I see. No wonder you're here today. The Kaitian three heroes are said to be invincible when the three of you join forces. No wonder you have the confidence to kill me. No wonder you treat the big clans and law enforcement officers as your enemies. The faces of the three of them turned ugly at the same time. Cheng Duing said, it's good that you know. Wei Wuyan laughed and said, back then, the Kaitian three heroes said that they were invincible when the three of them joined forces. But because of this, they provoked Yi Di. Yi Di flew and attacked. Within 5 moves, the Kaitian three heroes were defeated. From then on, they swore not to enter the capital for the rest of their lives. Is this true? The eyes of the three of them turned angry at the same time. Wei Wuyan laughed loudly. 100 years ago, the Kaitian three heroes robbed the law enforcement officers in the southwest region and wantonly made trouble. But they happened to meet the senior law enforcement officer, Feng Yuro, who was patrolling the southwest region. The three of them joined forces and fought with Feng Yuro. Within 3 moves, they were also fatally injured. From then on, they retreated and hid, never appearing in the martial world again. The faces of the three of them turned even uglier. Wei Wuyan said, I heard that Feng Yuro is a woman. And although they were defeated within 3 moves, in fact, Feng Yuro only used 1 move. Each of the three of them suffered 1 move at the same time. That's all. Wei Wuyan laughed and said, the Kaitian three heroes are invincible. Actually, the last 2 words of my name should be given to your 3 teachers. Wuyan, I don't have the face to face all the heroes in the world anymore. Wan Renjie of the Yinyang Bridge scolded furiously. Wei Wuyan, you have to pay the price for slandering my teacher. His figure was like lightning and he flew over like a rainbow. The black and white sword in his hand turned into a white light and a black gas and flew over. Wei Wuyan laughed loudly. He didn't unsheath his sword but met the attack with his bare hands. Wan Renjie snorted, Old man, I'm not taking advantage of you. Seeing that Wei Wuyan didn't use his sword, he also kept his sword and fought with his fists and legs. As their figures drifted, the 2 of them met in the air. With a bang, the 2 of them flew up like a rocket. They punched and kicked each other in the air as they continued to fly up. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them had already formed a whirlwind in the air. Within a radius of 1,000 feet, all the trees fell in all directions at the same time. The power of the battle between the 2 of them was actually so terrifying. The sound of the air exploding was like firecrackers during the new year. Wei Wuyan attacked with a palm, and Wan Renjie countered with a finger. Wei Wuyan's palm turned into a fist halfway. Boom! Wan Renjie's 2 fingers were like a sword and he poked. Wei Wuyan pointed with his finger, and Wan Renjie countered with his palms. In an instant there were countless changes. In the end, the 2 of them actually exchanged their attacking forms. Wei Wuyan pointed at Wan Renjie's palm. Wan Renjie snorted and his overlapping palms stretched out, launching a sneak attack at lightning speed. Wei Wuyan elbowed him. With a bang, the 2 of them somersaulted and floated away from each other in the sky. Looking from below, one could only see a whirlwind suddenly turning into 2 people. Then the 2 of them suddenly separated. From the size of a normal person they turned into the size of a soybean. Then, in the blink of an eye, they floated back to the size of a normal person and turned into a whirlwind again. Below the 2 of them was a small hill. As they fought, the whirlwind spiraling down from the sky became more and more intense. The trees on the hill suddenly leaned back and then cracked. Finally, they were uprooted and disappeared without a trace. The sword spirit was hiding behind a big rock, and was watching this fierce battle with rapt attention. He sighed from the bottom of his heart, after such a long time, it's only today that I've seen a real battle between experts. You have to watch it carefully. For someone of your cultivation level, the changes in the artistic conception of a battle between experts of this level is a blessing that you can only come across by chance. Chuyang didn't say anything. He only watched the battle in the sky and silently simulated, deduced, studied and tried to crack it in his heart. In the midst of the fierce battle, Wei Wuyan suddenly let out a long howl. He shook his arms and flew up. He actually left the battle circle and came to an absolute high altitude. Wan Renjie was so excited that he didn't want to let go. He also flew up and chased after Wei Wuyan. But when he went up, Wei Wuyan had already pulled himself up to a height of more than 1,000 feet 3 times in a row. Underground, it was almost impossible to see clearly with the naked eye. On the ground, Cheng Duing's face changed. He shouted, "Big brother, draw your sword. Inyang Bridge. Wei Wuyan is going to kill." Chapter 860. Wan Renjie clearly heard his brother's words, but he didn't draw his sword. He only looked up at Wei Wuyan's figure. His body actually stopped in mid-air, and his palms slowly drew a few circles, setting up a defense in front of himself. Marshalling Yang, then he crossed his palms in front of his chest. There was actually a faint sound of wind and thunder from his palms. Cheng Duing sighed deeply. He took out his life and death saber and flew up to the top of the mountain, ready to help at any time. The sword spirit said, "Have you seen through it?" Chu Yang said, "What have I seen through it?" The sword spirit said, "At this level, it's a battle of wits and courage. Wei Wuyan's strategic grasp is already quite perfect." Chu Yang pondered and said, "You mean?" The sword spirit said slowly, "The three of them have surrounded Wei Wuyan, so Wei Wuyan can't run away. Once he escapes, he'll immediately be besieged by the three of them. No matter how powerful Wei Wuyan is, he's no match for the three of them at the same time. So Wei Wuyan can only fight. Looking for opportunities in the battle is Wei Wuyan's only way out." Chu Yang recalled the standing positions of the four people before this and said affirmatively, "Exactly." The sword spirit said, "So, after Wei Wuyan knew the identity of the other party, he immediately insulted them. Moreover, he had given a real example. Under such circumstances, someone would definitely make a move out of anger, and this person would be Wei Wuyan's first target. And this person must be the eldest martial brother of the three." The sword spirit said, "If the eldest martial brother doesn't attack when his sect is insulted, the other two can't attack. This is Wei Wuyan's first plan after he recognized his situation. He's using the rules of the martial world." Chu Yang said, "Yes." The sword spirit continued, "And no matter whether it's out of respect for the eldest martial brother, or because of his identity as an expert, he can only fight one-on-one in this first wave of attacks. The other two people won't intervene unless it's a critical moment. This is Wei Wuyan's second plan. He's using the mentality of an expert." Chu Yang agreed, "Since his cultivation has reached such a level, how can he be so shameless as to attack others unless it's a matter of life and death?" The sword spirit nodded, "Therefore Wei Wuyan's second plan has also succeeded." Next, Wan Renjie came over with a sword, while Wei Wuyan faced him empty-handed. This might seem unintentional, but it was a blow, an insult. "I can deal with you with a sword empty-handed." And he had calculated correctly that Wan Renjie was proud and arrogant. In front of his two junior martial brothers, he wouldn't be able to back down. This is the third stratagem. And at this time, even if Wan Renjie knew that the other party was trying to goad him, he could only do so. Chu Yang agreed. So Wei Wuyan's third plan succeeded, the sword spirit said, and successfully created a chance for him to fight Wan Renjie alone. His fourth stratagem was to lure Wan Renjie into the sky. Because if we were on the ground, no matter where we are, the other two would be able to provide support immediately if there was any danger. Only in the air would we have such a short opportunity. Yes, Chu Yang replied. Only by severely injuring Wan Renjie in this high altitude can Wei Wuyan have a chance to escape or kill Wan Renjie, the sword spirit said. And Wan Renjie fought with Wei Wuyan several times, but he was defeated and escaped. But obviously he didn't use his full strength. At this moment, Wei Wuyan didn't use his sword, so the danger of death was greatly reduced. So Wan Renjie also wanted to see the gap between him and Wei Wuyan. So, even at this moment he didn't use his sword. The sword spirit said, "This is Wei Wuyan's third stratagem." Chu Yang said, "But the other three obviously aren't fools." Cheng Duing drew his saber and went up to the peak. Although he didn't attack, he was a powerful restraint to Wei Wuyan, and Wei Wuyan couldn't kill him. The sword spirit agreed, once Wei Wuyan used his full strength to injure or kill Wan Renjie, he would immediately suffer from Cheng Duing's desperate counterattack. He looked up at the sky and sighed, if Wei Wuyan's cultivation was a little higher, he wouldn't have to worry about this. But now he can't. Let's see how he deals with it. Chu Yang asked, Sword Spirit, how's your current strength compared to these 4 people? The Sword Spirit was silent. Not as good as them. He sighed, I'm still far from them. Chu Yang said, oh. The Sword Spirit said, if you become a Sword Emperor in the future, then I'll be able to defeat these 4 people. But now it's absolutely impossible. Of course they can't kill me as well. Chu Yang snorted and said, but they can kill me. Marceline Yang. The Sword Spirit smiled. Chu Yang suddenly shouted, Wei Wuyan is going to attack. The Sword Spirit was shocked and looked over. In the sky, Wei Wuyan strolled step by step as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Every time he took a step at a height of 1,000 feet, the entire land within a radius of tens of miles would tremble. Later, his footsteps became faster and faster, and he had already become a blurry shadow in the sky. And the ground had already started to tremble, as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. Plumes of smoke and dust, which were almost rushing straight up, suddenly filled the sky. Brilliant plan. Chu Yang praised from the bottom of his heart. In this way, it was already impossible for Cheng Duiying, who was on the ground, to accurately grasp the position of the 2 people in the sky. Wei Wuyan's attack will happen in an instant, the Sword Spirit said heavily. Before he finished his words, a sharp sound of something breaking through the air had already sounded in the sky. Wei Wuyan's body suddenly turned from high up in the sky, and he fell down vertically like a sharp sword. Behind him, a wisp of green smoke curled up. Because of the high speed, the friction between his body and the air had actually caused the air to burn. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived above Wan Renjie. Wei Wuyan put his left hand behind his back and raised his right palm suddenly. Without caring about anything else, he chopped down his palm almost savagely. This palm carried the power of 1,000 feet high in the sky. It was as if the thunder god had suddenly raised a big hammer that could shake the world. Wan Renjie exhaled, good. He rotated his palms and pushed them out fiercely. Whoosh, it actually produced a violent sonic boom followed by a thunderous sound that shook the heavens. It was the heaven-splitting thunderbolt palm of the Kai Tian 3 heroes. Wei Wuyan's right palm and Wan Renjie's palms collided fiercely. Boom. The small hill on the ground actually left the ground and jumped up. Wan Renjie gave a muffled groan and fell down. Normally, under such a strong impact, Wei Wuyan's body should have been shaken off. But Wei Wuyan didn't take a breath. His body turned into a steel knife, and he fell down forcefully from the impact, like a meteorite that was burning its life in the atmosphere. But his speed was even faster. He raised his left hand that had been behind his back and slapped down fiercely. At the same time, his right palm was behind his back again. Wan Renjie shouted and desperately tried to block with his palms. Another collision. Wei Wuyan still didn't make a sound. His left hand was shaken off and he put it behind his back again. His right palm struck out again like lightning. Boom, 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 boom. 7 or 8 palms struck down violently in succession. Wan Renjie could only parry and didn't have the power to fight back. He never expected that Wei Wuyan wouldn't be shaken off by the heaven-splitting thunderbolt palm. Instead, he fell even faster. It was this little mistake that led to his current tragedy. 2 figures, one above and one below, fell down like meteors. Wan Renjie's body hit the ground with a bang and sank deeply into the ground. Wei Wuyan's violent figure rushed down like a thunderstorm. Only a series of crazy hitting sounds could be heard from the ground. He went deeper, deeper, deeper. Cheng Duiying and Bao Buhuan came to the side of this human-shaped hole at the same time, looking anxious. Now the 2 of them didn't dare to go down, let alone attack. Because in such a situation, no matter how they attacked, Wei Wuyan would have to bear it, and Wan Renjie would have to bear it too. The 2 of them were almost one body. Cheng Duiying shouted. He stomped his feet and grabbed the ground with both hands. The next moment he slowly lifted it up with a hey sound. The ground that was hundreds of feet deep and more than 400 feet in radius was lifted up by him, like a big pancake. He roared and threw it out fiercely. Then he kicked it up. The whole ground was overturned by his kick. It rolled out hundreds of feet and landed far away. A figure flashed and Wei Wuyan came out from the ground. He sneered, flicked his sleeves and flew up in a cloud of dust. However, just as he leaped up, a ghostly sword light entangled him like a poisonous snake. A gloomy voice said, Wei Wuyan, have you forgotten that I, Bao Buhuan, am an assassin? Wei Wuyan was shocked and he retreated quickly. Now that he had exhausted a lot of his power after the fierce battle, How could he resist the sneak attack of the number one assassin in the southeast region? He retreated as fast as lightning. That wisp of sword light also chased after him like a maggot in a tarsal bone. After going back and forth, when Wei Wuyan stood still, he realized that he was near the entrance of the cave again. It was only at this moment that he had the time to draw out his sword. After the three swords clashed, Bao Buhuan withdrew his sword and retreated. His body swayed and he disappeared in a cloud of dust. This cloud of dust created by Wei Wuyan was not only beneficial to himself, but also to an assassin like Bao Buhuan. A murderous intent came from behind him. Wei Wuyan found that he was already in the middle of a pincer attack by Cheng Duiying and Bao Buhuan. With a roar, the ground boiled like magma. Wan Renjie, covered with mud, desperately jumped out from the ground. Once he appeared on the ground, he spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. He raised his head and said fiercely, "Brother Wei, what a vicious golden thunder palm." Wei Wuyan's continuous attacks almost pierced a hole in the ground. But this Wan Renjie actually didn't die under such attacks. He could even jump up by himself. Such a tenacious vitality made Chu Yang have more scruples and standards to measure the cultivation of the so-called second-grade saint level. Wei Wuyan smiled and said, "Same to you. Brother Wan's thunderbolt palm is also not to be trifled with." He stretched out his hands. A gust of wind blew, and the clothes on his arms turned into butterflies. They flew away piece by piece, revealing his clean arms. Wei Wuyan looked at the clothes that flew away with some love and said softly, "This is the silk of the 7th level spiritual beast, have a nice silk. It's midnight. Where are the monthly tickets?" Chapter 861. Bao Buhuan didn't say a word. He swung his sword, changed his position quickly and swung his sword again. Strange pop-up window cue. This Bao Buhuan was indeed the number one killer in the southeast region. He swung his sword to the east and west, appearing and disappearing unpredictably with a gloomy, ghost-like atmosphere. But the Wuyan sword net that Wei Wuyan had set up was actually broken after a dozen or so sword moves. Cheng Duiying only felt that his whole body was relaxed, as if he had just woken up from a sticky nightmare. He roared and leaped up. His life and death saber flashed. Wei Wuyan fought calmly. But the gap between these 3 people and Wei Wuyan wasn't very big. Wei Wuyan could win against any one of them in a one-on-one fight. But if 2 of them joined hands, he would be somewhat restricted. Cheng Duiying fought head-on, and was incomparably dauntless. He swung his saber horizontally and fought with his life. Bao Buhuan floated around like a ghost. Every time he swung his sword, he would stab at the most uncomfortable part of his body. The pressure that he gave Wei Wuyan was even greater than that of Cheng Duiying. On one side, Wan Renjie closed his eyes and adjusted his breath. He was trying to recover his martial power as soon as possible. If Wan Renjie joined the battle again and wielded his Yin-Yang bridge, Wei Wuyan felt that he would really have to step on the Yin-Yang bridge. But now he couldn't get away. First, he had consumed a lot of his martial power in the battle with Wan Renjie. Then he fought with Cheng Duiying, which consumed even more of his martial power. Now it was equivalent to his 3rd battle. In this battle, his spirit was tense, and the degree of fatigue was far greater than that of the previous 2 battles. Even if he escaped now, he would definitely have to pay a heavy price. Once he paid such a price, he would definitely not be able to escape from the number 1 killer in the southeast region. While Wei Wuyan calmly accepted the battle, he was carefully thinking of countermeasures. He had to be careful. The 3 people opposite him were all experienced in the martial world. It would be too difficult to slip away under their watch. Chu Yang looked at the battle and said lightly, "I really don't know when this battle will end. Wei Wuyan has already changed 7 sword techniques." The sword spirit said, "If the battle between experts can't end quickly, it will be a long battle of attrition. There's nothing unexpected." Chu Yang said worriedly, "It's best if nothing happens to Lure." The sword spirit smiled in a carefree manner. "Don't worry, our spiritual energy can completely cover that area. I've already sent out a strand of energy to keep an eye out for any movements over there. If there's anything out of the ordinary, we can rush over immediately." "That's good." Chu Yang felt relieved. Then Chu Yang discovered a doubt. "That's not right. Wei Wuyan is the number 1 blood payer in the world, and he has completed the task of killing a supreme martial artist. But from the looks of it, his cultivation is clearly not at the level of a supreme martial artist." The sword spirit immediately rolled his eyes and said, "You're a little silly to say these words. If Wei Wuyan really became a supreme martial artist, wouldn't it be a piece of cake to deal with these 3 people? The battle should have ended long ago, why drag it out like this? But how did he complete the task of killing a supreme martial artist? Chu Yang frowned. Killing a supreme martial artist isn't the only way out in the open. They could assassinate him, poison him, or even ambush him when he was seriously injured. In short, there were many ways. Besides, since that supreme martial artist has a bounty on him, there must be many people who want this bounty. And since they want this bounty, they must think that they have the confidence to kill a supreme martial artist. Do you think that everyone is brainless? And when Wei Wuyan met him, who knows how many supreme martial artists he had already fought? The sword spirit said, "What's there to be surprised about when Wei Wuyan took advantage of him?" Chu Yang suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He said, "Yes, you're right." The sword spirit said, "So, although you usually use schemes and tricks, you're still an orthodox martial artist in your bones. You can't think of this not because you're not smart enough, but because you still yearn to be open and above board." The sword spirit smiled. If Mo Yaoji was here, even if someone told him that a martial emperor killed a supreme martial artist, he wouldn't be surprised. That guy is a natural ancestor of schemes and tricks. Like Diwu Qingru, he belongs to the category of evil people. Chu Yang laughed. The sword spirit said, "As for Wei Wuyan's title as the #1 blood payer in the world, it's probably because he killed a supreme martial artist. As for whether he's really the #1, and whether there's a real supreme martial artist among the blood payers, who can say for sure?" Chu Yang deeply agreed. At this time, the battle had already reached its climax. Qing Duing was fighting fiercely. His yellow robe fluttered, and his long saber turned into thunderbolts that connected heaven and earth. He slashed down fiercely. Bao Buhuan's figure became even more elusive. His dusty robe was faintly discernible in the dust and fog that filled the sky. He looked even more like a ghost with form but without substance. His sword light was like a venomous snake. Sometimes it would strike again. Wei Wuyan's face was solemn. His Wuyan sword turned into a simple and unadorned light screen, and he fought steadily and surely. Although he was at a disadvantage, his defense was impenetrable. He was like a towering mountain that wouldn't fall. From the looks of it, if there were no other changes, these three would probably continue fighting until next year. However, other changes came very quickly. Wan Rujia, who had been adjusting his breath with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. Two dazzling lights shot out from his eyes. Then he slowly stood up, and the bones all over his body made crackling sounds. Stretching out his arms, he saw that the wounds on his arms were no longer bleeding. His two arms were as smooth as before. His injuries had already recovered. With a soft sound, the yin-yang bridge appeared in his hands. The black and white swords emitted two completely different lights. The black was like the night and the white was like the day. He took 2 steps forward and watched the battle with his sword in hand, but didn't take any action. Qing Duing and Bao Buhuan were instantly invigorated. Qing Duing laughed and said, "Eldest senior brother, you've recovered so quickly." Bao Buhuan laughed, "Eldest senior brother, second senior brother is right." Wan Rujia laughed and said, "It's just an injury. Do I need to recuperate for a long time?" The three brothers laughed at the same time. Wei Wuyan, who was in the middle of the battle, suddenly felt the pressure multiplied. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He originally thought that Wan Rujia would join the battle, but Wan Rujia didn't take any action. This caused his plan to fail. Wei Wuyan is really in danger this time. The sword spirit sighed and said, "If Wan Rujia takes action, it shouldn't be a problem for Wei Wuyan to break out of the encirclement and escape from Bao Buhuan's side. As long as this #1 killer is seriously injured, the remaining 2 won't be a problem in terms of tracking." Wei Wuyan has been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. But when the opportunity came, Wan Rujia didn't take any action. This is really a case of God's plan. Chu Yang chuckled. His eyes were fixed on the battlefield with a ruthless look. "I've really benefited a lot from this battle." The sword spirit said, "Do you need me to take action?" Chu Yang looked at him puzzledly. "You? Why do you need to take action?" The sword spirit was speechless. "We don't need to take action. We only need to watch from the sidelines." Chu Yang said, "If Wei Wuyan can't break out of the encirclement of these 3 people, he'll just die. There's nothing else in this world except for a lot of fucking experts. At the very least, if you help him get out of the encirclement, he'll at most owe you a favor. What else will he do?" The sword spirit stared at him. Chu Yang said, "So, to deal with someone like Wei Wuyan who never owes anyone a favor, I must make him owe me the biggest favor. That'll be cool." The sword spirit said in shock. Do you want to take Wei Wuyan as your subordinate? That's really whimsical and unimaginable. If you really think so, I advise you to give up. Chu Yang sighed. I feel that you really don't understand me. Am I the kind of person who takes advantage of others' difficulties? The sword spirit lowered his head silently and thought, aren't you the kind? In the midst of the fierce battle, drops of blood began to splash out. Wei Wuyan's body was already injured. Qing Duing's body was also bleeding from 2 or 3 places. The sword spirit was shocked. The battle is about to end. Chu Yang was puzzled. Generally, when experts of this level fight, once they're injured, it means that they can't control their protective spiritual chi freely. So, once such a situation occurs, everyone will end the battle quickly, lest their injuries become more and more serious, and they can't even escape. The sword spirit said solemnly, this is also experience. This kind of experience is only suitable for 5th stage martial saints and above. Chu Yang nodded seriously, I'll remember it. In the field, Wei Wuyan suddenly looked up and roared. So stupid. Chu Yang couldn't help but scold, isn't he informing the enemy? I'm going to break through the encirclement. If you want to break through the encirclement, just break through the encirclement, but you actually have to roar? The sword spirit sighed, you haven't reached this level so you still don't understand. Of course he's going to break through the encirclement immediately. But, this is something that can't be helped. Can't be helped? Chu Yang was puzzled. A battle at this level is purely using one breath to connect the bridge between heaven and earth, and then using one's innate embryonic breath to support one's breathing. This breath can last for a few days and nights. But once you reach the point where you need to break through the encirclement, you need to go all out. Since you're going all out, you need to spit out all the breath that you've been holding in. Only by changing your breath can you break through the encirclement in the best state. The sword spirit said, if you don't spit out this foul breath, I'm afraid you won't be able to get out at all. Sure enough, when Wei Wuyan's roar shook the mountains, Qing Duing and Bao Buhuan also roared at the same time. Their voices were fierce and rushed straight into the sky. The 3 forces dispersed the clouds in the sky. Wei Wuyan's body was like a dragon soaring in the clear sky. He leaped up, and Qing Duing's saber shone brightly as he chased after him. A cloud of dust suddenly rose from the ground, and Bao Buhuan's body flew up, wrapped in the dust. Wei Wuyan roared, and the Wuyan sword suddenly shot out colorful and dreamy sword light. No one had expected that the Wuyan sword, which had been simple for so long, would suddenly shoot out such a colorful and murderous sword light. Wei Wuyan's body was wrapped in the sword light, and like lightning he flew across the sky. Even the sword spirit was astonished at such a speed. To be continued. Chapter 862. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Wei Wuyan's direction was indeed Bao Buhuan. Bao Buhuan was faintly discernible in a cloud of dust. Wei Wuyan rushed past him. With a whoosh, Bao Buhuan turned into fragments all over the sky. Wei Wuyan knew that something was wrong. What was broken was only Bao Buhuan's gray robe. Bao Buhuan's crossing of the netherworld came straight at him like a viper. Wei Wuyan's Wuyan sword was held horizontally. Behind him, Qing Duing's broadsword slashed down. Wei Wuyan roared and rushed forward. His long sword first knocked Bao Buhuan's long sword away, and then suddenly shrank back. The sword hilt protruded from his ribs and met the blade of the life and death saber. With a boom, Qing Duing's rainbow-like attack was immediately restrained. He stopped and retreated. Wei Wuyan spat out a mouthful of blood, but he accelerated and rushed towards Bao Buhuan at a speed twice as fast as before. Bao Buhuan was drifting at a slow speed. Seeing that Wei Wuyan was rushing towards him even more fiercely, Bao Buhuan clenched his teeth and suddenly attacked with the crossing of the netherworld. Wei Wuyan's face was cold and his eyes were ruthless. He was already prepared to kill Bao Buhuan at any cost with this strike. At the very least, he would beat Bao Buhuan until he couldn't move. With this assassin around, his escape would be a bumpy one. When the 2 swords were about to collide, a black and white light shadow suddenly appeared beside Wei Wuyan. Inyang Bridge. Wan Renjia actually launched an attack at this moment. Wei Wuyan roared suddenly. The aura in his body surged, and his black robe suddenly left his body to meet the Inyang Bridge. But his body still met Bao Buhuan's attack without any hesitation. The 2 swords collided with each other and there was a chaotic sound. At this moment, Wei Wuyan had launched 180 swords in one breath. Blood flowed like a waterfall in the sky. Bao Buhuan let out a blood-curdling scream and fell unsteadily from the sky. There were wounds all over his body. There were dozens of them. Their flesh and blood were overturned and dripping with blood. At the same time, Wanrenjia's yin-yang bridge broke Wei Wuyan's black robe ruthlessly. At the moment when the black robe turned into black butterflies fluttering in the air, the black and white sword aura surged, and Wei Wuyan's body was also covered with wounds. Wei Wuyan forced himself to endure it. With a muffled groan, he swung the Wuyan sword and used it as a broadsword. He then slashed the yin-yang bridge ruthlessly. High up in the sky, both of their bodies trembled violently at the same time. Then they spurted out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Wei Wuyan's blood sprayed onto Wanrenjia's face. Wanrenjia didn't waste a mouthful of blood either. He sprayed it onto Wei Wuyan's face. Wei Wuyan roared hoarsely. With a plain sword light, he flew out like a bolt of lightning. With just a flash, he disappeared into the forest in the distance. Wanrenjia and Cheng Duing chased for 2 steps before stopping simultaneously. Since Bao Buhuan, who was good at lightness martial arts, was already injured, it was no different from a fool's dream to kill Wei Wuyan under such circumstances. However, with such injuries, Wei Wuyan definitely couldn't relax. The two hurriedly landed on the ground to check on Bao Buhuan's injuries. At first glance, both of them frowned. Bao Buhuan's injuries were extremely serious. 40 to 50 sword strikes had almost penetrated his bones. If he wasn't treated in time, he might become disabled. But where could he find a doctor in this desolate mountain? The two of them instantly became very anxious. It's over. Under Chu Yang's urging, the sword spirit retreated stealthily from the scene and rushed back to the carriage like a gust of wind. It's so satisfying. Chu Yang was still sighing until he carried Chu Lur onto the carriage. Then Divine Dr. Chu whipped the horse. Go! His voice was loud and clear, and the sound of the whip was also extremely crisp. Could almost be heard from miles away. He actually started to gallop the horse without stopping. Chu Lur felt very strange. Big brother, why are you in such a hurry? What did you do just now? Was it you who caused the heaven and earth to shake just now? Heaven's secrets can't be revealed. Chu Yang said mysteriously. Behave well later. If you behave well, I'll use my superb skills to make delicious food and fun things for you. Chu Lur curled her lips and said, you're definitely going to play some tricks again. Look at how sneaky you are. Chu Yang already knew how to deal with little Lolas. He said proudly, I heard that someone came to our house to propose marriage a few days ago. Well, don't look at me, he's asking to marry you. Chu Lur's face changed instantly. Big brother? Really? Chu Yang smiled and said, otherwise, why would I bring you along and run so hurriedly? You also know that guy. He's the little young master of the Bao clan, the one with crooked mouth and buck teeth. Chu Lur retched and said with trepidation, what happened after that? After that, I ran away with you in the name of treating your illness. Chu Yang smiled and said, my sister is so obedient. Why would I let her marry that crooked mouth and buck teeth guy? Chu Lur patted her chest and said, you scared me to death. Big brother, you're so nice. Yes, but if Lur doesn't listen to me, I'll send you back. Chu Yang threatened shamelessly. Anyway, the clan also has such intentions. The alliance of the clans of the flat mountain ridge. Chu Lur panicked at once. She grabbed Chu Yang's clothes and said pitifully, Lur will definitely listen to you. Big brother, don't send me back. Good girl, Chu Yang praised. This guy actually doesn't have any conscience or uneasiness about deceiving, scaring and threatening his own sister. Instead, he's complacent and thinks that he's resourceful. Even the sword spirit despised him in the tribulation space. The carriage rumbled and sped forward. The horses neighed and the whips cracked loudly in the air. Divine Dr. Chu galloped with 2 horses, with the momentum of thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers. He rushed to the front of nothing, with great momentum. Wanrenjia and Cheng Duing wrapped Bao Buhuan's injuries, but they couldn't do anything about the serious injuries that went deep into his muscles and severed his bones. Moreover, Bao Buhuan's internal organs were also injured by Wei Wuyan's sword aura. In just a short while, Bao Buhuan had vomited several mouthfuls of blood. The two were even more anxious and helpless. At this moment, they heard the neighing of horses and the rumbling of wheels from afar. It seemed that a carriage was coming. The two were overjoyed at once. As long as there was a carriage, they could carefully carry Bao Buhuan onto the carriage and keep the carriage moving slowly and steadily. Perhaps they could escort Bao Buhuan to the place where they found the divine doctor. The two didn't hesitate anymore. They stood up at the same time, enduring the pain in their bodies, and walked towards the direction of the carriage. The two had already made up their minds. Even if they had to kill Bao Buhuan and rob him, they must snatch this carriage. The steeds galloped closer, closer, closer. Sure enough, it was a luxurious carriage. The two looked at each other and smiled. They both felt relieved. When they found that there was only a teenager in black driving the carriage, and that the person in the carriage was extremely weak and didn't seem to know martial arts at all, they felt even more assured. The two stood in the middle of the road. Cheng Duiying shouted, "Stop!" Actually, before he said anything, the teenager in the carriage had automatically pulled the reins. Then the teenager jumped off the horse and ran over. The two were surprised. "We haven't gone over yet. Why did this guy run over on his own?" While they were thinking, the teenager in black had already reached them. With a concerned look, he asked, "What happened to the two uncles? Did you encounter a bandit? Alas, this world is really not peaceful." Following which, his face was filled with enthusiasm. "The two uncles seem to be heavily injured. Why don't you get into the carriage and rest first? I know a little about medicine, so I can treat your injuries first." The two uncles' injuries are really not light, these hateful bandits. Wan Renjia and Cheng Duiying looked at each other. Damn, there's actually such a naive and kind-hearted person in this world. Before they could say anything, they heard the young man say sincerely, "Uncles, you don't have to doubt me. I'm just being sincere. Moreover, to be honest, I'm also skilled in martial arts. If I really had bad intentions, I wouldn't have to waste too much effort to deal with the two of you now that you're injured like this." The more the youth spoke, the more arrogant he became. His expression was somewhat contented as he said, "The two of you should believe me now that I've said this. Haha, my medical skills are also known as a divine doctor." Wan Renjia and Cheng Duiying looked at each other. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You look so young. Although your cultivation is also very solid, you're only a first or second stage martial emperor. Of course, you're considered an expert in the eyes of ordinary people. But in our eyes, you're nothing. And you actually said that, I really won't have to waste much effort to deal with the two of you? These words really make us, the two uncles, a little scared." The teenager in black waited for a while. Seeing that the two of them still didn't speak, he couldn't help but feel a little resentful. He said, "Since the two of you don't believe me, I'll take my leave." As he said, he took out 2 packets of golden sore medicine and said, "But since I've met you, I can't just ignore you. Here are 2 packets of golden sore medicine. The two of you can bandage yourselves." As he said, he put the 2 packets of medicine on the ground and smiled a little mockingly. In his smile, there was a meaning of, "The two of you have no guts and no knowledge." He turned around and was about to get on his horse. Wan Renjia said sternly, "Wait." The teenager in black turned his head and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He said a little contemptuously, "It's okay if the two of you don't appreciate my kindness. But do the two of you still want me to stay?" Cheng Duiying narrowed his eyes and said, "Do you really know medical skills?" In this wilderness, even if they didn't fully believe him, they would rather treat him as a last resort. Otherwise, with Bao Buhuan's injuries, he really wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Furthermore, what kind of tricks could this ignorant brat play in front of 2 saint-level experts like them? Not to mention the two of them, even Bao Buhuan, who was seriously injured, could also kill him thousands of times. The teenager in black said proudly, "In my hometown, I'm considered to have some medical skills. The two of you will know whether I'm a doctor or not after you try." Wan Renjia laughed and said, "It's not that we don't believe you, but now there are very few people who have such kindness." The teenager in black said seriously, "Uncle, you're wrong. You must know that a doctor has the heart of a parent." In the space of tribulation, the sword spirit suddenly choked. According to his experience, he knew that as long as Divine Dr. Chu said, "A doctor has the heart of a parent," someone would definitely be in trouble. Chapter 863. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Wan Renjia sighed and said, "A doctor has the heart of a parent. There are really too few doctors like this now." Chuyang nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, so on the day I finished my apprenticeship, my teacher taught me that a doctor has the heart of a parent. As a doctor, I have to keep this in my heart at all times. No matter when, I have to treat the wounded and the dying as my responsibility. I have to travel the world and practice medicine all over the world. I have to relieve the suffering of the people and save the lives of the people." "My teacher," Wan Renjia hurriedly interrupted him and said, "Little brother, aren't you afraid that the two of us are bad guys?" Chuyang said seriously, "Uncle, you're wrong. In the eyes of a doctor, there's no distinction between good and bad guys, only doctors and patients. There's only pain. If doctors like us have to pay attention to these, then how can we relieve the suffering of the people and save the lives of the people? Even if we're bad guys, we're still born and raised by our parents. That's also a life. Since it's a life, how can we bear to abandon it? You have to know that humans are born by their mothers. Pigs are born by their mothers. Even if we're bad guys, we're also born by our mothers. Juan Renjia coughed repeatedly, wanting to interrupt him, but Chu Yang still finished his words fluently. Translated by Kayomura, edited by Elrianth, Juan Renjia smiled bitterly and said, "Then, little brother, can you tell what kind of injury I'm suffering from?" Chu Yang looked at him attentively. Then, his face suddenly became serious. He took 2 steps forward and reached out to feel his pulse. Juan Renjia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This little guy really doesn't have any precaution at all? She actually recklessly came to check my wrist pulse. But he had nothing to fear, nor was he afraid. Besides, he wanted to test his ability. How could he avoid it? Chu Yang stretched out his finger and put it on his pulse. He turned his head and frowned, saying, "Uncle, your injury isn't light. Your internal organs were first injured by a kind of tyrannical force, and then by sword energy. Currently, your chest and abdomen are only temporarily suppressed. In fact, 2 of your ribs are broken. The blood clot in your internal organs hasn't been completely removed, and a piece of your shoulder bone is also broken." He bitterly laughed and retracted his finger. "You can move now because you used your own cultivation to lock in your injuries. But to be able to use your own cultivation to heal your broken bones, and to be able to move freely, this level of cultivation is something that I am far from being able to do. So Uncle is actually an expert. To think that I was still boasting about myself, I really am ashamed." He shook his head and sighed with self-mockery. Uncle just asked me why I didn't have bad intentions. If I did, Juan Renjia is. Net 7 by 24 hours uninterrupted update of pure TXT handwritten novel. What Chu Yang said just now, including the injuries in his body, couldn't be seen by ordinary doctors after he used his own cultivation to lock them up. But Chu Yang could see it, and he even said it out clearly. This young man had always said that he knew medicine. Now it seemed that he knew more than that. He was simply a divine doctor. Third brother could be saved. Chu Yang seemed to feel that the shock he had caused wasn't enough. He turned his gaze to Cheng Duing again, saying, "This uncle's injuries are lighter. But his internal organs are also seriously injured. Alas, your injuries are easy to treat. Actually, with your cultivation, as long as you can control your injuries and prevent your broken bones from being broken, you can recover by yourself." He squatted down and picked up the 2 packets of Jinchuang ointment. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Both of you are fine. Well, especially this uncle, he just needs to circulate his martial energy and spit out the blood clot in his body. Then he will be fine. I'm ashamed to be in front of an expert, so I'll take my leave now." As he said, he got on the horse and cupped his hands. With a shy expression, he smiled shyly and was about to wave his whip. "Wait." Juan Renjia's face had already changed. He put on a smile and said, little brother? Haha, wait, to tell you the truth, we still have a brother who is seriously injured. Well, he's over there. Little brother's medical skills are superb. How about you go and help him?" Speaking till here, he hurriedly added, "Of course, we'll definitely repay you in the future." As he said, he took out a purple crystal jade core from his bosom and stuffed it into Chu Yang's hands. Translated by Kayomura, edited by Elrianth. Chu Yang was displeased, saying, "Uncle, what are you saying? Where's the injured person? Quickly take me there." He pushed away the purple crystal jade core and frowned, saying, "How can a person's life be measured by these? Hurry up, it's more important to save him." "Is it serious?" Cheng Duing looked ashamed and hurriedly led Chu Yang over. Chu Lur stuck her head out of the carriage and pouted, saying, "Big brother, don't go, I'm scared." Chu Yang hurriedly turned back and said to Juan Renjia, "Uncle, please help me to accompany my sister. She's timid." He said to Chu Lur, "Good girl, I'll go over there and take a look. There's an injured uncle. He's in a lot of pain." Chu Lur said obediently, "Then come back quickly, don't let him be in pain." Juan Renjia hurriedly agreed to Chu Yang's request and put on an amiable smile, saying, "Little girl, you're really cute, ha. What's your name?" With his cultivation, he could naturally tell at a glance that this little girl was really an ordinary person without any cultivation. She was really powerless. Chu Lur trembled and looked at him timidly, saying, Who are you? Why is there so much blood on your body?" Her eyes immediately revealed a look of fear. Poor Juan Renjia, when had he ever coaxed a child in his life? Now that Chu Yang casually said that he had a request but couldn't reject it, he stood there awkwardly. He actually nervously rubbed and wiped the wounds on his body and tried hard to put on a smiling face. It's nothing, haha, I just fell down. Chu Luer pouted. So scary? She was about to cry. Wan Renjie was at a loss. He hurriedly took out the purple crystal jade core that Chu Yang had just rejected. Good girl, don't cry. Look at this, is it pretty? Chu Luer's eyes lit up at once. With tears still in her eyes, she said, It's so pretty. Wan Renjie heaved a sigh of relief. Don't cry, I'll give it to you, okay? Chu Luer tilted her head. Really? Wan Renjie smiled amiably and said, Of course it's true. Chu Luer smiled through her tears. She was about to reach out her hand when she pouted again. But my big brother doesn't allow me to casually take other people's things. Although she said that, her sparkling eyes were full of love and desire as she looked at the purple crystal jade core. What a pair of naive little kids. Wan Renjie sighed and said, It's okay, I'll tell your big brother. If he doesn't let you take it, I'll beat him up. Okay. Chu Luer's eyes lit up. Then I'll beat his butt. Wan Renjie nodded repeatedly. Then I'll beat his butt. He thought to himself, this little girl is so innocent and so cute. At this moment, Chu Yang's grumbling voice could be heard. The two of you are really... He's already so seriously injured, but you still have the mood to argue with me over there. Hey, come and help. Then Qing Duing's flustered voice could be heard. I'm coming. Little brother, is this brother of mine all right? Chu Yang's voice could be heard. He's fine. Luckily I came in time. If I came an hour later, even a deity wouldn't be able to cure his disability. You guys are really... Then there was another round of grumbling. Wan Renjie was finally relieved. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chu Luer had already taken the purple crystal jade core and was playing with it in her hands. Suddenly she put it down and asked worriedly, Uncle, are your injuries painful? Hearing this soft voice, Wan Renjie only felt warmth in his heart. He smiled comfortingly and said, It's not painful at all. Chu Luer frowned and said worriedly, But there's so much blood, how can it not be painful? Uncle, come up. Let me wash your wounds. I've learned a lot from my big brother. Chu Luer said proudly. Wan Renjie couldn't help but want to laugh. At this moment he was really laughing from the bottom of his heart. First, he passed by an upright and simple young doctor, and then he saw an innocent little girl. This actually made his heart, which had become cold after roaming the martial world for so many years, soften a little. As this thought arose in his heart, he couldn't help but look at Chu Luer with a gentle gaze. Chu Luer didn't care whether he was willing or not. She pulled his hand and pulled him into the carriage. Wan Renjie was afraid that he would hurt this delicate little girl if he used too much strength, so he could only let her pull him in. Then Chu Luer really got busy. She used the water bag to clean his wounds gently. As she cleaned, she looked at him carefully with her big eyes that could speak. She asked with concern, Is it painful? As she said, she moved closer and blew on his wounds. Wan Renjie only felt that his whole body was bathed in the spring breeze when that little hand touched his wounds gently. For a moment he actually felt comforted. How could he still feel any pain? Suddenly a feeling arose in his heart. If I could have such a granddaughter. I'm covered in blood. How could I have such good fortune? Thinking of his late wife who died tragically in the hands of the enemy, and his son who unfortunately died under the sword, Wan Renjie's eyes became a little hazy. He sighed deeply. If his son was still alive, his granddaughter? No, it should be his great-great-granddaughter would also be this old? Wan Renjie had been alone for so many years. When had he ever enjoyed such familial happiness? Now, there was such an obedient, cute, clean and gentle little girl in front of him, asking about his well-being with undisguised concern. Wan Renjie actually felt a kind of satisfaction in his heart. It was a kind of satisfaction that only belonged to the elderly. Hearing his sigh, Chu Luer asked with concern, Uncle, are you in a lot of pain? It's not painful at all. Wan Renjie's heart was a little sour. He smiled gently and looked at Chu Luer kindly, saying, Even if it's painful, it won't hurt anymore after you blow on it like this. Chapter 864. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chu Luer's eyes instantly turned into crescents. She smiled happily and said, Really? Then I'll blow more for you. As she spoke, she really blew a few more breaths. Now Wan Renjie really felt that this breath of air was really like the breath of a fairy. It made him feel indescribably comfortable, both mentally and physically. The hostility that had accumulated in him for a long time seemed to have been blown away by this breath. He couldn't help but sigh comfortably. His heart became even more tender. He said gently, "Little girl, what's your name?" Chu-Lu-er smiled with her eyes squinted. "My name is Lur. Mother said that I have to be happy and let everyone who sees me be happy too." Wan Renjia felt the same way. He sighed and said, "This name is really good. I'm happy the moment I see Lu." His heart became more and more gentle and peaceful. For a moment he was actually immersed in such emotions and didn't want to leave. Recalling the past events of these years, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What exactly was the purpose of fighting for so many years in the martial world? If he could have such a well-behaved child to accompany him, wouldn't it be the greatest thing in the world to live in seclusion in the countryside and enjoy his family life? If I could do that, what more would I want in this life? Chu-Lu-er was even happier. She said, "Yes, everyone is happy when they see me." As she spoke, her eyes turned into two cute crescents again. Wan Renjia looked at her greedily and said gently, "Lu is a little girl that everyone loves. Of course they'll be happy when they see Lu." Chu-Lu-er agreed and nodded heavily. Her small head bobbed up and down. Wan Renjia felt warm and tender in his heart. He couldn't help but squint his eyes and smile comfortably too. For such an old man who had been alone all his life and had experienced the vicissitudes of life to suddenly meet a little girl like Chu-Lu, it was simply like a fire in his old house that couldn't be cured. Chu-Lu took out the purple crystal jade core and played with it in her hands. She liked it so much that she couldn't put it down. Sometimes she put it on her chest, sometimes she put it on her face, and sometimes she stuffed it into her hair. She kept asking Wan Renjia, "Does it look good? Does it look good?" Wan Renjia only said repeatedly, "Yes. Yes. Yes." Chu-Lu-er was even happier. Marshal Yin-Yang, without waiting for Chu-Lu-er to say anything, Wan Renjia took out another piece from his pocket. "I still have another piece here." "Really?" Chu-Lu-er snatched it over and placed it in her palm, comparing it with the other. "It's really beautiful. With Wan Renjia's cultivation, it would be unimaginable if someone could snatch something from him. Not to mention a little girl like Chu-Lu who had no cultivation at all." But when Chu-Lu snatched the purple crystal jade core away from him, Wan Renjia actually had a look of comfort and satisfaction on his face. He was even happier than when he had defeated a powerful enemy and plundered everything from the enemy's hands. "Come, Lur is so beautiful. How can you not have any accessories?" Wan Renjia said enthusiastically, "How about I carve a piece of jewelry for you with this?" "What jewelry?" Chu-Lu blinked her big eyes. "You know how to make jewelry?" Wan Renjia smiled proudly and said, "Humph, when uncle was young he used to specialize in this. No one can compare with this skill." Chu-Lu looked at him in admiration. "You're amazing." Wan Renjia was amused. He took out the yin-yang bridge from his chest. He actually started to make jewelry for a little girl with this world-famous murderous weapon that could separate yin and yang. Chu-Lu leaned over and looked at him attentively. She couldn't stop cheering, "Good, good, 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 good. Isn't this me?" Wan Renjia looked very complacent. When Chu Yang and Cheng Duing carried the seriously injured Bao Buhuan over, they saw such a scene. Chu-Lu grabbed Wan Renjia's clothes with her two small hands. "Wow, make another one, make another one." Wan Renjia was flustered. With a doting look on his face he said, Okay, I'll make another one." "Oh, my little ancestor, don't touch the knife." Chu Yang and Cheng Duing were stunned. They couldn't help but look at each other. "Nah, what the heck? What's going on?" Even Bao Buhuan, who was wrapped up like a rice dumpling, couldn't help but widen his eyes. Is this still my eldest senior brother? This kind, gentle, doting and smiling person? Is my so-called #1 bandit in the southeast region? The ruthless and merciless person who specially sends people across the Yin-Yang bridge? Wan Renjia? I hiss. Bao Buhuan's movement tore his wound. Caught off guard, he couldn't help but cry out in pain. But he still stared at Wan Renjia with his eyes wide open, as if he had seen his eldest senior brother turn into a beautiful woman. Wan Renjia smiled and raised the knife above his head as if he was surrendering. Okay, I'll make another one." As he said, he turned around and asked, "Is third brother okay now?" Cheng Duing said admiringly, "Little brother is really a miracle worker. After his treatment, third brother is fine now. He only needs to recuperate for a while to recover. Little brother is really amazing." He saw with his own eyes how Chu Yang performed the technique, how Bao Buhuan's wound healed at a speed that was visible to the naked eye, and how Bao Buhuan slowly regained his vitality from a dying state. The shock in his heart was really unparalleled. Juan Renjia comforted him and said, "That's good, that's good." Then he stretched out his hand. "Which one of you still has a purple crystal jade core with you?" Cheng Duing was stunned. "Eldest senior brother wants a purple crystal jade core." Juan Renjia was displeased. "What are you saying? If I don't want one, why should I stretch out my hand to you?" Cheng Duing said, "I still have one. I don't know if third junior brother has one." Juan Renjia said, "Since you have one, why don't you take it out quickly? I'm making jewelry for Lure." Upon hearing this, Cheng Duing almost fell off the carriage. He stammered, What? Eldest senior brother, you're making jewelry?" Bao Buhuan straightened his body at once and his two eyeballs almost popped out. "Eldest senior brother? You. Didn't you swear?" Juan Renjia frowned. "Stop talking nonsense. Take it out quickly." Cheng Duing took out the purple crystal jade core from his bosom in a daze. He didn't even know what he had done. Juan Renjia snatched it over and said, "Third brother, do you have one? If you do, I'll make a few more." Only then did Bao Buhuan realize that he had straightened his body. Then he fell down and gasped, hiss. I have one at home? Then you might as well not say it." Juan Renjia was slightly angry. Then he turned his head and asked Chu Lur kindly, What do you want me to carve?" Chu Lur rested her chin on her hands and finally decided, "I want a puppy." Okay, a puppy it is. Wait a moment, it'll be done soon. Uncle is awesome, right? Uncle is awesome. Much more awesome than my big brother. A puppy with a cuter expression. Oh ha. Your big brother is still a lot weaker than me. Cuter. How can I show off my cuteness?" Juan Renjia smiled happily and agreed. Then he took out the Yinyang bridge that he treasured as much as his life and started to carve the purple crystal jade core that he had just gotten. "He's crazy?" Cheng Duing said in a daze. The three of them, including Chu Yang, were also dumbfounded. Looking at Chu Lur's hands, there were already two pieces. One of them was a sculpture made of the purple crystal jade core, which looked exactly like Chu Lur herself. It had a pointed head and could be used as a hairpin. It could be seen that Juan Renjia had put in a lot of effort in carving this purple crystal jade core. All the essence of the purple crystal was left inside, and the little girl carved was very lifelike. Moreover, the fine lines that formed the hair on the forehead just happened to hang down diagonally. It was an excellent decoration. When in use, it would be an excellent piece of jewelry when inserted into the hair. When not in use, it would also be a rare and precious sculpture if played with in the hands, and the other one was a lifelike little pig, charmingly naive. Now, another puppy made of the purple crystal jade core was about to take shape. One must know that carving this kind of extremely hard purple crystal jade core would consume a lot of cultivation. Not to mention that the Yinyang bridge, which was absolutely not suitable for carving, was even more difficult. Chu Yang scratched his head. "What's going on?" At the same time, Cheng Duing also raised the same question. "What's going on?" Chu Lur looked excitedly at the purple crystal jade core rolling around in Juan Renjia's hands and said happily, "What's going on? Look, Uncle is so awesome. Wow, the puppy's head is about to become so cute, so awesome." Juan Renjia became more and more satisfied and said complacently, "Awesome? The awesome part is yet to come." Chu Lur danced with joy. "So awesome." Chu Yang's face twitched a little and he felt that even his internal organs were cramping. He thought, how is Juan Renjia the awesome part? It's clearly you, young Mistress Chu Lu. You actually turned a saint-level king of hell into such an amiable uncle? Do you know that this uncle is several times older than our grandpa? Chu Yang turned his head in a daze and almost twisted his neck. He forced a smile and said to Cheng Duing, cough, this senior brother of yours seems to be really caring and likes children very much." Upon hearing this, Cheng Duing simply rolled his eyes, and his whole body twitched as he said, "Very compassionate? Likes children very much? This is really seeing a ghost." Bao Buhuan opened his mouth and looked at Juan Renjia in a daze. He muttered, "Seeing the Yinyang bridge? One sword strike the Yinyang bridge. Seeing the Yinyang bridge, you use it to carve?" The legendary #1 bandit Juan Renjia. The legendary king of hell Juan Renjia, who was in charge of the Yinyang bridge. The legendary ruthless Juan Renjia who killed thousands of people. The Juan Renjia who dominated the southeast. Cheng Duing stared straight and said, I must be dreaming." Bao Buhuan groaned and said, "I'm going to faint." Then he really fainted. 5th update. Begging for votes. Chapter 865. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. When they were on the road again, Bao Buhuan was lying in the carriage. Two empty horses were dragging the carriage at a speed comparable to that of a cow. Web, Wan Renjie, Cheng Duing, Chu Yang and Chu Lur were walking. Everyone's expressions had become much more relaxed. They were laughing and chatting along the way as if they were a family. Chu Yang also treated Wan Renjie's injuries. He secretly mixed some vitality spring water into Wan Renjie's body. Wan Renjie immediately felt much more relaxed and praised Chu Yang for his treatment. Chu Lur's legs were short and her body was weak. After walking for a few steps, she felt a little tired. Chu Yang carried her on his back. Wan Renjie was envious and strongly requested to be carried on his back. Chu Yang was happy and relaxed, so he moved Chu Lur to another place. Wan Renjie carried Chu Lur on his shoulder and was grinning from ear to ear all the way. Chu Lur was very happy. She let out a string of bell-like laughter along the way. She had a purple hairpin on her head, a cute purple crystal piglet in her left hand and a cute purple crystal puppy in her right hand. All of them loved her very much. Wan Renjie had a great sense of accomplishment. Along the way he actually told Chu Lur a lot of stories. He was knowledgeable and experienced a lot. As long as it was interesting, he would make up some stories and tell them in a tone that children liked to listen to. Chu Lur listened with great interest. Since they were not in a hurry, it was okay to walk slowly. Chu Yang was also not in a hurry. Where could he find Wei Wuyin if he walked in a hurry? So, after walking for a few miles, the sky turned dark. After finding a place to set up camp near a mountain and a river, everyone came to a stop. After setting up the tent, Cheng Duing went out personally to hunt some game. The others talked outside and laughed from time to time. Bao Buhuan, who was in the carriage, heard the commotion outside. He supported his body and walked out to join in the discussion. This made Wan Renjie even more grateful. According to Marshal Yin Yang's injuries, it would be good if Bao Buhuan could get up in the middle of the night. Now, after being treated by Chu Yang, Bao Buhuan could move so quickly. While they were talking, Cheng Duing rushed out of the forest. He was carrying 3 wild hares in one hand and 5 pheasants in the other. He actually returned from a rewarding journey. Everyone laughed and then started to get busy. "Brothers, where are you going?" Chu Yang asked with a smile as he fiddled with the fire. Now, under Wan Renjie's insistence, Chu Yang didn't call him uncle anymore. This time, the battle between the Yi and Shao clans, the big clans. Wan Renjie sighed and said, "This time, the battle between the big and the Yi and Shao clan, the battle between the Yi clan and Shao clan is to the people. To the Yi and Shao clan and Shao. That Yi clan and Shao translation in, and translation is. As translation of to translation. Chu Yang said, "Brother, do you have such a deep hatred for the big clans? You should know that big clans are not people to be trifled with. The 3 of you are still a little weak." Wan Renjie smiled bitterly. "The big clans are rich and powerful. They have many experts. The 3 of us have trained hard for our whole lives, but we're only saint level. Compared to the big clans, we're not even worth mentioning. But in life, there are always some things that we have to do even though we know that it's impossible." Chu Yang was really puzzled. "I'd like to hear the details." Wan Renjie sighed. On the other side, Cheng Duing, who was roasting the pheasants, and Bao Buhuan, who was lying on the ground, also sighed deeply. The firelight shone on the night. The faces of the 3 of them were all gloomy. "The 3 of us are beggars," Wan Renjie laughed. "We're indebted to our teachers for taking us in as disciples and teaching us wholeheartedly. Our teachers' kindness is as deep as the sea. If we don't repay them, how can we be human? Although the 3 of you are a little straightforward and tough, you're also a little self-opinionated and arrogant. These are the shortcomings of your character. As your younger brother, I don't deny it. But the 3 of you have only been blood payers all your life. You've earned a bowl of rice with your own strength and you've never let anyone down. There was once a year when the 3 of you were drinking in the capital. When you were drunk, you said a few arrogant words. Unexpectedly, you angered the Night Emperor. With just 5 moves, the 3 of you vomited blood and retreated in defeat. You were even forced to swear that you'd never step into the capital again in your lifetime. After being humiliated like this, the 3 of you didn't say anything when you came back. You were afraid that we were young and impetuous, and would cause some trouble and lose our lives. That year the 3 of us were practicing martial arts. Suddenly the 3 of us came back with serious injuries. It turned out that they had provoked Feng Yuro when they were out on a mission. Feng Yuro didn't kill them but seriously injured them. After Feng Yuro made her move, Somehow, the three of us were besieged by experts from the big clans on their way back. When we came back to the southeast, they were already on the verge of death. After they came back home, they instructed us to move away immediately. 3 days later, the three of us passed away. From the beginning to the end, they didn't say who hurt them. Only when my master saw his 2 younger brothers die in front of him, he was on the verge of death. His mind was also a little muddled. Before he died, he said one sentence. Juan Renjia said deeply. What sentence? Chu Yang asked. Before my master died, he suddenly shouted, if there's a next life, I'll definitely exterminate the big clans and law enforcement officers. Juan Renjia seemed to have returned to the moment when his master died. He raised his head, gritted his teeth and said this sentence in a hoarse voice. After he said this, Cheng Duing and Bao Buhuan both trembled all over. A complicated look appeared on their faces, and tears even flowed down from their eyes. When Juan Renjia said this sentence, his tone and demeanor were exactly the same as what his master said before he died. There was silence in the forest. From then on, the three of us concealed our identities and practiced hard. A few years later, we dared to sneak out and inquire about this matter. Only then did we gradually know the inside story of this matter. Juan Renjia gritted his teeth. 2 ridges appeared on his cheeks. He said fiercely, if we don't take revenge for this, we're not worthy of being human. If we don't take revenge for this, how can we face our 3 masters in the future? So when the 3 of us knew the whole story, we swore to the heavens that in this life, no matter what, we'll never coexist with the big clans and law enforcement officers. Chu Yang finally understood. So this was the reason why these 3 people kept making trouble for the big clans. Especially the number 1 bandit, Juan Renjia, who was notorious all over the world because of this matter. Juan Renjia said it vaguely. Chu Yang knew that there must be some other inside story, but he didn't want to ask further. This time, we originally wanted to assassinate 1 or 2 important people secretly and further cause conflicts between them. But Wei Wuyin, this bastard, intervened and ruined our plan. Juan Renjia laughed. His expression was a little bleak. With our current situation, if we meet people from the big clans, we can only run for our lives. Who else can we assassinate? We can only give up on this plan. But, it's such a pity for this heaven-sent opportunity. Chu Yang pondered for a while and said, Elder Brother Juan, in your opinion, how long can this battle last? Juan Renjia said, it won't end even if we have another month. But now it's just a confrontation. Occasionally we'll assassinate and fight in the dark. The big battle on the surface shouldn't happen for the time being. He sighed. But even if this battle lasts for 2 months, our injuries will only be healed after at least 1 month. As for the 3rd brother, he'll need at least 2.5 months. And this is only because he met little brother, this divine doctor. If it's under normal circumstances, even if he's not disabled, he'll need at least half a year. And our assassination plan is based on the 3rd brother. So this time, no matter what, we won't be able to make it in time. Huh? Chu Yang pondered and said, perhaps, I have a way to heal your injuries in the shortest time possible. It's just that the process will be very painful and dangerous. What's the way? Juan Renjia and Cheng Duing both became spirited. Their eyes lit up and they grabbed Chu Yang's shoulders. Even Bao Buhuan, who was lying on the ground weakly, raised his head and looked at Chu Yang eagerly. To take a kind of medicine. After taking this medicine, one's cultivation can be increased by 500 years. We can use this method to completely use our cultivation to open up our meridians and use the essence of the universe to heal our injuries. Once the injuries are healed, not only will our cultivation recover completely, but we'll also be able to go 1 step further and enter the ranks of supreme martial artists. Chu Yang pondered and said with uncertainty, but this medicine is extremely dangerous. Those who take it have a 50% chance of survival. Juan Renjia, Cheng Duing and Bao Buhuan exclaimed at the same time, Purple Cloud Pill? The law enforcement officer's Purple Cloud Pill. You have Purple Cloud Pill? The 3 of them were all martial saints. How could they not know about this kind of medicine, which was the most miraculous medicine besides heavy pills? Once Chu Yang said that, they immediately guessed it. Chu Yang smiled and said, it should be that kind of thing. Back then, my teacher once saved a high-level law enforcement officer and was given a Purple Cloud Pill. Then my teacher broke this pill into pieces and studied it carefully. He actually developed the prescription of the Purple Cloud Pill. But, due to the preciousness of the ingredients, he only managed to find enough medicine to refine 1 pill. After so many years, he's already used up 2 pills. Chu Yang looked at the 3 pairs of eyes that were shining with divine light. He smiled and said, When I came out this time, my teacher gave me these 4 elixirs. Juan Renjia and the other 2 started to breathe rapidly. The 3 of them looked at Chu Yang and their Adam's apple trembled violently. This, their faces were full of worry. Chu Yang couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. If it were an ordinary person, upon hearing that he had such a rare treasure, he would probably have already snatched it without caring about anything else. But these 3 people didn't do such a thing. It was enough to show that they had their own bottom line. Of course, if they snatched it, Chu Yang would also give it to them. It's just that he would have to add more ingredients. Chu Yang laughed and said, "Since we're so fated and I feel like old friends at first sight, no matter how miraculous the medicine is, it's after all a dead thing. How can it be compared to human feelings?" Juan Renjia and Cheng Duing were instantly moved to the extreme. They almost had the urge to cry. This wasn't just a treatment for their injuries, but a good thing that could allow the 3 of them to reach the heavens in one step. From low-grade martial saints to supreme martial artists, this was a qualitative leap. For their future actions, this would also greatly increase their chances of success and reduce the probability of failure and death. This was simply equivalent to Chu Yang giving each of them another life. How could they repay such a great kindness? I have a good news to report to everyone. The 4th heaven of the world-defying stage has opened a group. The group number is 254369092. This is the 4th full subscription group of the world-defying stage. Entering the group requires verification. Brothers and sisters who subscribe to the world-defying stage are welcome to join. Feng Ling is waiting for you inside. All of you are my brothers and sisters. I hope to become friends with all of you. Together we can conquer the world, dance with the wind and clouds and conquer the world. Chapter 866. It was already early in the morning. Chu Yang sat on the ground tiredly and kept the silver needles. Marceline Yang. Just now, Juan Renjia, Cheng Duing and Bao Buhuan had taken the purple cloud pill one by one, and all of them had successfully advanced to first-grade supreme martial artist. Juan Renjia and Cheng Duing's injuries had all recovered, and they were in high spirits. Only when Bao Buhuan took the purple cloud pill did something go wrong. Because his injuries were really too serious, it was equivalent to directly using the strong medicinal power to open up his meridians. And not only did it open up, but it also had to be connected. Although Chu Yang had already considered this aspect before, he had underestimated Wei Wuyan's Wuyan sword aura. This made him use a lot of strength from Nyo Eru, as well as Juan Renjia and Cheng Duing's help at the same time. It was as if Bao Buhuan had wandered back and forth on the netherworld crossing hundreds of times. Just a little bit more, and he would explode and become fertilizer on the ground. When he finally passed through and completed the advancement, Chu Yang sat down on the ground weakly. His face was pale and he was sweating all over. His physical strength was seriously overdrawn. For Bao Buhuan's advancement, Chu Yang was almost half a step into the gates of hell. "Oh my God!" Chu Yang groaned. "The 3 of you are really worthy of being called Yinyang Bridge, Life and Death Road, Netherworld Crossing. I was just wandering on the Yinyang Bridge just now, wandering on the Life and Death Road, going back and forth in the Netherworld Crossing. This nickname seems to make a lot of sense." Juan Renjia laughed. "But little brother, you have single-handedly created a new Yinyang Bridge, a new road of life and death, and a new Netherworld Crossing. In this world, besides little brother, who else has such ability?" Cheng Duing and Bao Buhuan repeatedly agreed. The gratitude of the 3 towards Chu Yang was already deep in their bones. Chu Yang had saved Bao Buhuan's life by chance and he was warm-hearted. He carried Bao Buhuan in a carriage to recuperate, and even used his supreme medical skills to alleviate their injuries. Furthermore, after knowing the difficulties of the 3 of them, he did the most generous thing in the world. He gave each of them a purple cloud pill. He made 3 supreme martial artists in one go. This was equivalent to completing the Leduo of 3 people. Furthermore, Chu Yang had made this decision after careful consideration. Marceline Yang, because after the 3 of them broke through, they would still have to go against the big clans and the enforcers. How much risk would Chu Yang have to take because of this help? It was easy to imagine. As someone from the heavenly layer, how could Chu Yang not know how powerful the big clans were? Just now, he had personally said that the 3 of them were weak and did not have high hopes for them. But, for the sake of their friendship from before, he had resolutely done so. Where could he find such a friend? The 3 of them were so touched that they didn't know what to say. "You want to say thank you?" It was as if no matter how much he thanked him, it could not be compared to the great kindness he had shown him. What do you want to give me as a reward? But what can you give me that can compare to 500 years of cultivation? First grade supreme martial artist? The three of them had received such great kindness from him for no reason, but they realized that they really had nothing to repay him with. Little brother, I really don't know what to say. Juan Renjia sighed. Little brother is so warm-hearted. You saved us from the brink of death and saved us when we were in danger. Your great kindness, I'm really. After a long while he still felt that he couldn't say anything. Chuyang smiled and said, Elder brother Juan, why do you have to be like this? You and I are children of the martial world. We should be free and easy. I'm surprised that you're acting like a child. Juan Renjia said emotionally, if it's just a small matter, of course we should be free and easy. But such great kindness, how can we be free and easy? How can the three of us repay such a great favor? Sigh, Chuyang smiled generously and said, Elder brother Juan, you're wrong. To be honest, I didn't want to get involved in this matter at first. But the three of you did it for your master's last wish and to take revenge for him. Such filial piety is really touching. Moreover, Chuyang looked at Chulur lovingly and said, previously Elder brother Juan coaxed my sister. You really like her from the bottom of your heart. My sister has been weak and sickly since young. It's rare for her to be so happy. But with Elder brother Juan coaxed my sister to be so happy. Intentionally or unintentionally, Chuyang had already changed the way he addressed them from 3 seniors to 3 elder brothers, and now to Elder brother Juan and 3 elder brothers. He smiled a little shyly and said, I'm not afraid of being laughed at, but I treat my sister like my own flesh and blood. Just that Elder brother Juan can make my sister so happy, it's already worth it for me to do something for the 3 of you. The latest chapter of Martial Yin Yang. He paused for a while and said, moreover, Elder brother Juan also gave her 3 priceless purple crystal jade cores. Juan Renjia's face instantly turned red. He waved his hands repeatedly and said, little brother, please don't mention this again. I'm already so ashamed. Just 3 purple crystals. He simply didn't know what to say. Ching Duing said, that's right. Little brother's great kindness, how can we use some purple crystals to measure it? How can we repay little brother? The 3 of us really can't think of anything even if we break our heads. Bao Buhuan smacked his lips. After pondering for a long time he said, little brother, big senior brother and second senior brother are right. Chuyang smiled honestly. He was a little at a loss as to what to do. He said, the 3 elder brothers have praised me so much that I'm blushing. Well, now it's 3 elder brothers again. Juan Renjia sighed for a long time. When he heard Chuyang's words, his eyes suddenly lit up and he said, little brother, we hit it off at first sight. If you don't mind our bad reputation, how about the 4 of us become brothers? As soon as he said this, Cheng Duing and Bao Buhuan's eyes lit up. Cheng Duing clapped his hands and said, that's right. Big senior brother is right. Little brother, as long as you don't object, the 3 of us will shamelessly become brothers with you. From then on we'll share blessings and misfortunes together. If anything happens to little brother, even if the 3 of us are thousands of miles away, we'll definitely rush to your rescue. We'll solve all your difficulties. Chuyang shook his head repeatedly. No, this can't be done. The 3 of you are all seniors in the martial world and you're very powerful. And now you're a supreme martial artist and you're looking down on the world. How can I, Chuyang, dare to become brothers with the 3 of you? Isn't this killing me? This can't be done. Cheng Duing said enthusiastically, why can't this be done? Not to mention supreme martial artist. Even if you're a supreme martial artist, isn't it all thanks to you? Let's become brothers. As long as we're willing, who can stop us? Chuyang said sincerely, I know what you 3 big brothers are thinking. You want to help me, but, really? Juan Renjia said angrily, little brother, do you think that the 3 of us have a bad reputation? Chuyang was stunned. Big brother Juan, what are you saying? If I? Cheng Duing threatened. Little brother, are you afraid that we have too many enemies in the martial world and that will implicate you? Chuyang looked even more embarrassed. Big brother Cheng, you've really wronged me. If I? But before he could finish his words, Bao Buhuan had already interrupted. Big senior brother and second senior brother are right. Little brother, you must be thinking this way. It's really not. Chuyang shook his head repeatedly. He was so anxious that his face had turned red. Since it's not, then what's the point of talking about it? Juan Renjia said resolutely, this matter is settled. Chuyang was surprised. This isn't good, is it? What's not good about it? Juan Renjia said domineeringly, Among the brothers, I'm the most important. If I say so, then so be it. Doing, go and prepare some incense and candles. Buhuan, go and find something and prepare to make a blood oath. Little brother, fourth brother. Do you have anything else to say? Chuyang spread out his hands helplessly and smiled bitterly. Big brother has already said so? What else can I say? That's good. That's great. The three of them instantly became excited and laughed. Not long after, the four of them used soil as incense and caught a wild deer. The four of them then made a blood oath. Then the four of them knelt down on the ground at the same time. One Renjia said, "Heaven above, earth below." The other three said in unison, "Heaven above, earth below." I, Wan Renjia, Chengduing, Bao Buhuan and Chuyang are sworn brothers today. From now on we'll share blessings and misfortunes together. If you're in trouble, I'll stand in front of you. If you're in trouble, I'll bear it. I, Chengduing, I, Bao Buhuan, I, Chuyang. The four of them bowed to the heavens 8 times and stood up. All of them looked very happy. Fourth brother. Wan Renjia called affectionately. Fourth brother. Chengduing called fervently. Fourth brother. Bao Buhuan grabbed Chu Yang's hand at once. Chu Yang's expression was very bashful, and he actually found it hard to open his mouth. After a long while, he finally said with a red face, "Big brother?" Yes. Wan Renjia answered loudly and patted Chu Yang's shoulder hard. He laughed and looked very happy. "Quickly go and greet your second and third brothers." Second brother, third brother. Chu Yang bowed to each of them. Fourth brother, please get up. Chengduing and Bao Buhuan couldn't help but smile. Wan Renjia said, "Fourth brother, you're still young and in your prime. Your future is limitless. So, when we were swearing to be sworn brothers, I deliberately didn't say, I don't wish to be born in the same year, same month and same day, but only wish to die in the same year, same month and same day. Haha, the three of us are already old men. If we really said that, little brother would suffer a big loss." Haha. The other two laughed together. "Congratulations, big brother." Chu Luer cupped her hands in front of her chest. "Big brother, second brother, third brother, fourth brother." Wan Renjia instantly burst out laughing. He grabbed the little lowly and pinched her lightly. Then he laughed and said, "Your big brother has become sworn brothers with us, but you haven't. In the future you'll still call him uncle, okay?" Chu Luer said pitifully, "Then won't I be 1 generation younger?" Ha ha ha. The four of them laughed together. 7th update. Thank you, brothers. We finally rushed to the first place temporarily. At that moment, more than 30 brothers and sisters took screenshots for me at the same time. I was so excited that I almost smashed the keyboard. With a swoosh, I took off my clothes and ran naked in the bedroom. Nothing to say. You're too powerful. In order to express my gratitude, all the students who voted for me today stepped forward and I kissed them one by one. There's no limit to males and females. Yes, males kiss on the face, females kiss on the mouth. Wow. I'll continue to write the 8th update. No matter how late it is, the 10th update is definitely. Brothers, defend our position. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation votes. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.